Hey, what's up, everybody?
And welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 304. And today we have quite a treat for you guys. We have a special guest joining us, someone that we are so excited to have here. And I'm sure many of you know who he is. We have the incredible Bryan Entin in the house.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I think you guys are incredible, so it's so cool to be here.
You're incredible. Seriously, I mean, we have just been using tons of your coverage over the years, like clips and getting information from you. I mean, I was really introduced to you during the Gabby Petito coverage, and I've just been such a fan. And that's when I was really introduced to NewsNation as well. So Bryan works at NewsNation, and what has that been like?
NewsNation?
Yeah.
It's been cool. I mean, it's a startup. You know, it's been around almost 4 years now. But
only 4?
Yeah, but that's still really young for like the news network when you think about like CNN and Fox and MSNBC that have been around forever. So it's still a little baby, which is cool. It's cool working at a startup.
Yeah.
You know, because it's exciting and they kind of let me just do things that I'm interested in and be all over the place. Whereas at like a more traditional network, you'd kind of have maybe like a certain beat or you'd cover a certain topic. Whereas I've been kind of, hey, can I go, go to explore people who live in bunkers? Sure. Can I do a UFO story? Sure. True crime? Sure. So it's been cool for me in that way.
And that's pretty rare, right? To have the freedom to ask where to go. And
yeah, it is, I think. You know, I have friends that work at other places and it's a little more regimented at places that have been around for a long time. And, they have a way they've done things for 30 or 40 years, whereas we're just trying all sorts of new things.
Yeah.
And it's cool, too, because we're trying to appeal to middle America, moderates, people who are sick of Fox or sick of CNN or sick of MSNBC and just kind of want, just regular news.
Just real, like cut out the bullshit.
Yeah.
And I love that about NewsNation is we were just talking about this off camera, how you guys are really taking an approach of, letting all voices, all opinions be heard and not leaning one way or the other. And I hope it remains that way.
Yeah.
Because it's really unique. And like I was telling you earlier, I think it's so needed in today's America.
It is, yeah. And it's hard sometimes because we've gotten so used to things being so partisan.
Yep.
And you may watch NewsNation sometimes and think, gosh, they seem a little left-leaning. And you may watch the next hour and be like, gosh, they seem a little right-leaning. And I think maybe that's what we're trying to do, Like it just isn't supposed to be one way.
It's awesome. It's interesting. It keeps, different perspectives. Even when you don't agree, I think it's so important to hear from the other side and try to understand people who have different opinions than you. And, I think that's one of the biggest problems we have and how we've gotten to where we are in this country is people only tuning into what feeds their personal interest, And so it's really healthy to hear from the other side.
Yeah, and we have more in common with each other, I think, than we don't, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, what part of the country you live in, what color you are.
Yep.
And people forget that. And like with my job, I travel around so much to all these places, all these little towns. And some of my friends back home in Florida are like, oh gosh, you went there? Is it freaky? I'm like, no. People are nice everywhere.
People are
9 out of 10 people are nice everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must be such a cool experience getting to go. How many states do you think you've been to?
Oh my God.
Well, just in your NewsNation time.
I mean, I haven't counted. Probably, I would say maybe like 40.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't been to Hawaii for work. I haven't been to Alaska. But I've been to a lot of like North Dakota, South Dakota, places that you would never normally go, which is another cool part of the job. Because, you plan a vacation, you have certain spots you go that everybody else goes, you heard was cool. But I go to some of these places that, in the middle of nowhere that actually end up being really cool,
Yeah. Yeah. You were just telling us you're headed to Oklahoma next, right?
I am.
Right after this.
I am. Yeah. After this, I'm going to fly to Amarillo, Texas, and then drive up into Oklahoma. And that's another place no one ever really goes to the panhandle of Oklahoma. And when I went there, they're armed. There's militias there. You need to be careful. And I mean, I'm in people's houses within 2 hours, you just make friends with people,
Yeah. And I'm sure that's been a really important part of the job is kind of building relationships with the people you're talking to, or, I mean, we'll get more into this, but especially when you were covering the Petito case and, I'm sure you had to kind of get to know some of the neighbors around the Laundrie's house. And
yeah, I think it's the same with what you guys do. And I've watched a bunch of your episodes. Like you just kind of, I'm not really a judgmental person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really like people for the most part, unless people do really bad things, obviously. Then I don't.
Right.
But for the most part, like it doesn't matter where people are from or what their background is. Like, I don't know, I go in with a really open mind.
Yep.
And sometimes like producers I've worked with have said that's my downfall too, because I'm very trusting in the beginning. Like, it takes a lot for me to then realize like someone's a bad person. Like, I think people have good intentions usually. And so I go into like interviews like that. And I think it's kind of worked for me because people will say a lot because I'm not going in like, I'm going to get you, you know, and you end up getting more. Sometimes that way, just being friendly and just making people comfortable.
I'm just a real person here to talk to you. I think that's approachable and people open up.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't come across as like a typical reporter. No. You know what I mean? You the way you engage is just very natural and very human. You don't have this like certain persona. You know, some reporters just, you can stick, you know, pick them out in a crowd and be like, yeah, from the way they sound, the way they look, you know what I mean? And just kind of figure it out really quickly. But you just seem like you probably go and blend in, which is great because then you're really getting to know these people and get the real story. And that's super cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's what I try to do. Like, I used to try to be like, oh, I'm supposed to be, you know, an anchor man. And,
right.
You know, like growing up, I watched the news and I wanted to be a journalist. And I was always trying to like kind of be someone else, I think, for a while.
Trying to play the part.
Trying to play the part. This is the way. And worried what people would think. Was I tough enough? Was I, you know, what are my friends going to think? And then I just realized like, just be normal. Just be myself. I think you just have to be yourself. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's really paid off. I mean, you've done incredibly well in your career.
Appreciate that.
2 Emmys. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was your coverage on the Fuego volcano eruption in Guatemala.
Yeah, that was before Gabby Petito. It was funny because, like, well, not funny, but when I worked the Gabby Petito story, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, like there's this new guy." But I had been doing this for a while. You know, it's just no one really knew who I was, but I was doing the same thing. Like, I was the same person. But yeah, I went out. There was a bad volcanic eruption in Guatemala where like a whole town was covered in lava. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Gosh, that must have been a crazy experience.
It was, yeah. And I work with the same kind of like you work with a lot of the people that you are close to and family and stuff. I work with the same photographer that I've worked with all that time.
Oh,
still now, yeah. So we've been through a lot together. So he was with me for the volcano coverage, and he was with me for Gabby Petito. So his name's Luis.
Oh,
shout out to Luis.
Yeah.
Hey, Luis.
Yeah.
I was going to ask
really
you that.
Cool.
What's your, like, who do you travel with? What's your kind of team look like? Is it just you and the camera guy, or kind of explain that a little bit. I think that's kind of interesting.
It's usually like 3 people. Like, so when I started at News Nation, it was me and just Luis. So it was 2 people. And then kind of as we grew, we were able to then get a producer. So it's me, Luis, and Lauren usually. So it's 3 people. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like a little
Intimate,
family.
yeah.
And you kind of, you know, you see each other when you're grumpy, and because we're on the road pretty much every week. So, you know
each other well.
You see exactly. Like, you see each other when you're throwing up. You see each other when you have a migraine. You see each other, you know what I mean? Like,
is that ever hard? Do you ever have a time where you're sick and you just don't want to be on camera and you still have to just get out there and do it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like the migraine thing comes to mind. Actually, the Uvalde shooting. Remember that awful shooting in Uvalde? Oh my God,
of course.
I was there for that, and we had to stay like an hour and a half away because it's in a small town. There were no hotels, and so we were driving in and out every day, and I just had a really bad migraine. That's just what popped in my head. And Lauren had to drive, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And it's also like such a sad story.
So heavy.
So you feel, you know, you're already feeling terrible about it all. So yeah, some days you're just like, gosh, I don't want to do this today. But then you do.
Yep. And it really is amazing that you do it, because I think you really have had the ability to connect with people in some of these darker moments and make them feel comfortable to share, because it can be really overwhelming. I mean, not only are you going through the worst thing that you've ever gone through in your life, but then you're possibly on camera doing interviews, and it's really important to have someone you feel safe with.
Yeah.
And that really comes across in your interviews, that people feel safe with you.
Yeah, I try. I mean, and it is awkward. Like, you know, I always hate like having to knock on that door, like when someone's having the worst day of their life, or they've just found out, you know, that their loved one was killed or whatever, and they're not answering the phone, and you're like, gosh, like maybe we should go to their house. And it feels so terrible in some ways, like, you know, and then sometimes like they'll slam the door and you're just like, I'm an awful vulture, basically, you know, but then like at least half the time people want to talk, like whether it be because they want to get the word out about who their loved one was, and they want the world to know. Or sometimes like there hasn't been an arrest and they're like, yes, we want to talk. Like we want this person to be caught. So I always make myself do it because a lot of times they want to engage, you know,
it's very valuable.
But it stinks every time.
Yeah, it's gotta be. Yeah. That's really tough to be right there. I really can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because you start like with the Petitos, you know, I started covering that really early on, like kind of before it made national headlines.
I remember that.
When she just like was announced she was missing, is that kind of when you jumped into
that's when we went to Northport, Florida, when Brian Laundrie got back without her.
Right.
And so no one was really there yet. And it's just weird to have, I still have all of those memories, and then like being friends with the Petitos now.
Yeah.
And
they're amazing.
Kind of like, it's just such a weird full circle moment, you know?
Yeah, definitely. They are so impressive to me.
They are.
They're amazing people. I mean, everything they've done with the foundation as well, and you know, just the strength that they have all coming together. It's this kind of blended family now. It's really inspiring.
It is. Like you don't see people like that regularly who are that cool and that strong. And like you said, the fact that they're all really are so close.
Yep.
You know, the two sides of the family, which normally people hate each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And they're just such nice people. Like they really are incredible.
Yeah. And I loved during all of that how focused they were on. They were very aware that the coverage they were getting is pretty abnormal. I mean, there was so much interest in that case, and they, you know, really made it a point to speak about the lack of awareness on other cases, and that not that their daughter should have gotten any less, but they're saying, you know, everyone should get the same type of coverage. And I think that's a really important message, that in their time of need, that they were so focused on helping other people. I mean, they got that foundation going immediately.
Yeah.
And they've just been so awesome. I would love to meet them.
And they'll even tell you now, like, we don't understand why our case, they'll say that. They're like, well, we don't understand why did this happen? Like, why did it get so much coverage?
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
What is your
maybe we can jump right into that.
I mean, I think, and this is what I've told them, I mean, I think there was something about Gabby that people connected to, and the fact that she had so many photos and videos, and she just had this aura about her that I think, me included, just kind of sucked us in.
Yeah.
And you could just tell what an amazing person she was. And the fact that there were so many photos and videos out there made it easier for us to do our jobs.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, some families you might get 2 photos and it's hard to really keep a story going for months.
Yeah.
Whereas with her, you know,
she
had videos, you know, she was trying to build this online presence.
Kind of vlogging. Yeah.
So I think that was part of it. And, you know, was it the pandemic? Like people were sort of, I don't know, at home paying more attention to things.
Yes. Yeah.
That may have, I think it was more just her though, just something about her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just the fact that they had this online presence that kind of got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I remember in the initial days just getting tagged in it left and right. I mean, the first couple of days and having no idea what it was going to turn into.
And also the mystery. Right. I think obviously the mystery is a big part of it too, of like what happened.
Yeah.
You know, they're on this road trip together, the van life, you know, the interaction with the police officers. I think whenever there's those interactions with police officers, the body cam footage, you know, comes out, I think that just sparks interest in people. And at least, you know, that's what we've seen in other cases as well, is like when it has those elements to it, it definitely, you know, it's easier to sort of tell the story. And, you know, it can be really challenging. Like you said, if there's 2 photos and, you know, we're going purely off of, you know, what's, you know, somebody else's experience with the individual as opposed to having something to share that everybody can kind of see and connect to in a different way with video. So, but I mean, what a massive story. Did you even foresee any of it at the beginning? Like, were you just completely overwhelmed by how big this was getting and how much people were tuning into it? Yeah,
I think I had like maybe 20,000 Twitter followers.
Yeah.
Like when I went into that. Yep. And my boss was like, oh, you should, because I was in Miami, they're like, you should drive over to Northport, Florida, which is on the other side of the state. Like there's this girl missing and, you know, her boyfriend came back without her. It might be something. So I just drove over there. And my first thought was, I looked them up in the car on the way while Luis was driving and saw the social media. And I don't know why my first thought was like, is this some kind of prank? Like, some kind of social media trying to get attention or something. That was just what I'm like, this is going to be over in like a day or two.
Yeah.
You know, or she's going to pop up. She's going to show up. Like this will be there for 2 nights. And I had no idea like we would end up basically staying there for, I think we were there almost 2 months.
Yeah.
Kind of camped out there on the neighbor's lawn. And just, I got like obsessed with it. I mean, you guys know how that is with certain cases. You don't know when it's going to happen, but suddenly you're just totally, it becomes your whole world. Like I was just in it.
Yep.
You know, and the thing was the laundries, we were outside the laundry's house all that time and they weren't talking at all. And they were like rushing to their car every day and speeding off. And that to me, like just fuels my
You're like,
interest.
why are they doing that?
Right. So like that just every day they would do that. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they doing this? You know?
Yep.
Would you be like, hey guys, like,
oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I probably knocked on their door.
Were they ever rude?
I was camped outside their house. Like we literally had like a tent, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And how long were you out there?
Probably, I don't know, 6 weeks.
Wow.
Something like that.
That is wild.
For just hours.
Yeah. So we had a hotel room, but we would, again, I became obsessed. Like I become obsessed with things, like with stories and cases. And so I was so paranoid that like something was going to happen when we left. And also, I don't know, I just wanted to stay there. So we were there most of the time and then we would go back and like nap and shower. And we ended up, because the police, the way the road was set up there was no sidewalk. It's just this weird Florida neighborhood. And the police cleared all the media out at one point because like the neighbors were annoyed and there was nowhere for people to stand safely. So then we rented, luckily I like had bonded with the laundry's neighbors who didn't like the laundries because the laundries didn't like dogs and they had these like really 2 cute bulldogs. So they had some drama with the laundries. So they were already kind of having a bad relationship with the laundries.
Interesting.
And so we were like, can we pay you to rent your lawn, which was right next to it must have made the laundry so mad because it was right. We were like right there. And they were like, sure. So we would, I can't remember how much we paid them. I want to say it was a couple $100s a week. And we would give them the money and then we got to, because I felt that their grass was dying.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just like we had cars, we had people coming and going. Mm-hmm. So it was a real inconvenience for them. Plus they were like, clearly their neighbors were going to hate them forever now, you know?
Yeah.
So we had to pay them. And we ended up really bonding with them and the dogs. And it was kind of like a little family right there for all that time, you know?
Yeah, what an interesting experience.
Yeah.
As humans, we spend so much time thinking about food. When we're going to eat next, what we're going to eat next, what we need to get from the grocery store to make what we're going to eat next. Well, we all spend way too much time probably trying to figure out what we are going to eat. And if you would like to save yourself some time, I highly recommend HelloFresh because it saves me and Josh so much time because it takes all the thought and work out of dinner time. So ditch the meal planning woes and dive into HelloFresh's biggest menu yet, with over 50 recipes and even more market items to choose from every single week. This summer, you can cut down on time spent in the kitchen so you can get back to enjoying the summer sunshine thanks to HelloFresh's quick and easy recipes. Every week's menu features options that are ready in just 20 minutes or less, and that's even quicker than delivery. And this is super cool. We love using this in our house because Holly loves it. It's HelloFresh's line of kid-friendly recipes that are picky eater proof and perfect for families looking to shake up their dinner recipe rotation while school's out for summer. And on average, HelloFresh's meals have a 31% lower carbon footprint than meals of the same portion size made from supermarket ingredients. And because HelloFresh has pre-measured ingredients, you're not wasting anything, and HelloFresh is able to 100% offset their delivery emissions, meaning that you're able to get dinner on the table while being kinder to the planet. And when you sign up today, folks, you'll unlock free appetizers for life. You are not going to want to miss out on that deal. Get the party started or enjoy a little pre-dinner treat with an appetizer of your choice in every HelloFresh box for free. That's right. You heard that right. Free. So go to HelloFresh.com/milehigherapps for free appetizers for life. One appetizer item per box while subscription is active. That's free appetizers for life at HelloFresh.com/milehigherapps. Gosh, I really cannot imagine what that would be like. And you never had any interaction with the laundries?
Well, it just sounds so crazy looking back, but in the moment, I mean, I would stay there all the time. So every time they would leave, I would
What's up?
shout questions at them.
Yeah.
Which I told you, like, I'm a nice guy. Like, I don't know, that's not my comfort zone.
Right. Yeah.
But I became so into this story and got so obsessed with them never answering any questions and not really talking to anybody.
As
Plus,
everyone
we're
else was.
interviewing Gabby's family at that time, and they're telling us they're not even responding to our text messages. So I kind of felt like I had this obligation to stay there, you know?
Yeah.
So every time they would leave, I would shout questions at them. And then I don't even know if I've said this before, but like there was a few times we would follow them, which kind of felt like, as a journalist, like you have to kind of walk this line. And I remember talking with Luis about that, like, do we really want to keep following them? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where is the line? Like, I don't want to be a paparazzi. Like,
right. That's,
you know?
Yeah, it's a tough
But
balance.
we never knew where they were going, or was it something to do with the case, or, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be a really hard internal battle to have. Like, because obviously you want to be the first to report something new happening, right? Did you feel like there was a lot of competition for coverage on the story, or were you guys feuding with other?
A little bit, you know. I was like the first one there pretty much, besides like some of the local stations. So, and then everybody started to show up, like the big networks, as it became a really big story. So there was definitely, and you know, NewsNation at that time, we were so new. I mean, we were brand new. So it was me and Luis, and up against like Dateline and 2020 showing up, and these massive, you know, with the boom mics, and you know, and I'm there like with my phone, just like chasing these people around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. No one else stayed out. I think with just the passion we had.
Yeah. That shows through in the coverage so much. It was so different. I remember, you know, I had never heard of NewsNation and watching, and you and Jennifer Coffendaffer too. And I was just you guys seemed so passionate about it, and that it really showed through. It didn't seem like it was just like, we're here just because, you know, that's where the views are and the clicks, and, you know, it seemed like you guys were just really in it. As the whole nation was. I mean, it was really, I've never seen anything like that in my lifetime. I mean, I was very young for John Bonet, and so for me, it was like probably I think it was like the biggest case that I had kind of been in this industry while it was happening, and it was just,
it's weird during it. You don't think that really, you're just kind of in it with the day to day. Cause every day I would be trying to keep track of the laundries, keep track of police, like what's new, you know, trying to build relationships there. The FBI was then involved, talk to the Petitos. So you're so busy every day trying to just cause there was new information coming out
every day.
So I wasn't really taking in that, like, wow, everybody's really into this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you would have to make contacts with law enforcement.
Yeah.
How has that been? Are they pretty receptive to you guys, or is it kind of a hit or miss type of situation?
It's hit or miss. I've had pretty good luck again, I think, just because I'm, you know, even they were getting a lot of heat during that time.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you remember, like, even when he got out of the house and like they missed it. Do you remember that? And they thought it was his mom.
Yep.
And they were supposedly had eyes on the house. Like they were getting a lot of heat, and I was just always nice to them, just because, again, for me, you know, it's worth it to just be nice, maintain that relationship. I'll get the information. Like, it's not my job to be, you know, whatever. So I had a pretty good relationship with them during that. Once the FBI took over, it's always harder with the FBI to get information. It kind of shuts things down, you know. But we because I was basically living at the house when everything was happening, and when they thought Brian Laundrie was in the house. That was another reason I didn't want to leave, because when we thought he was there, what if he comes out? What if something happened? So I saw them put up and I was friends with the neighbors because I was there so much. So the neighbors I was renting the lawn, but then the neighbors in the back, I made sure to become friends with the neighbors on all three sides, just because, like, you know, just to be friendly, and we'd get them donuts. We would hang out with them.
You were like their neighbor for a little while.
Yeah, we were. And so, and they, whatever. So there was one night when the police put up these secret cameras, like in the trees behind the house. They asked the neighbors for permission, who I was friends with, and they were like, sure, of course, so that they could monitor the back of the house, to make sure in case Brian Laundrie tried to go out the back. And so I got video of all of this happening, like secretly, you know?
Yeah.
And then basically it was a good relationship building moment with the police, because I was like, hey, we're not here to like mess up this case. Like, obviously we want, you to figure out what happened.
Of course.
So we're not going to use any of this. Like, you know, like I just wanted to get the video for when it was all over one day. Maybe we would need it, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think that when you asked about relationship with the police, things like that go a long way. They're like, this guy's legit. Like,
yeah.
A lot of people would have just tweeted that out. That would have been a sexy moment.
Totally.
A million clicks, secret cameras.
Yep.
And I'm just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you do that, they're like, they trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that all really showed too. It never felt in your coverage that it was, you know, just trying to get the clicks. I mean, you guys remained professional during the entire thing. And that's why I think your coverage stuck out so much and it was so big for News Nation. And that was your first true crime case coverage or just for News Nation?
Yeah, it was my first. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I had covered crime in I was a local reporter in Miami before News Nation. So, you know, we had crime stories and stuff, but I never really had like a big true crime story.
In on it. Yeah. So you worked at, what is it? WSVN.
Yeah.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what year did you start?
In news reporting?
Yeah.
Well, I started.
Not to age yourself.
Yeah. I just turned 39, but I started in college, like working in college. I always wanted to do this for the most part. And I went to University of Missouri. From Florida. I grew up in Florida. I went to University of Missouri, and in college I got a job at the local station. Like, have you seen the news vans that drive around with a little thing on top?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that was my job. Like, it was a part-time job. And so like I would go to class, and that's when I started kind of in the business. Like, I would drive that van.
I bet that was so cool.
It was at the time.
Yeah.
I thought I made it.
Like,
I was in the van.
I'm official.
I would be out there with the reporters when they were doing their live shots. And I was, you know.
That's big in college, though.
It was,
really opportunity.
It was a great opportunity. Yeah. Because then when I started proving myself, then I was in the weekends. Because, you know, the weekends are a little slower. They would let me go out and do some reporting and stuff. So that's really when I started, like in college.
What was the first story you covered?
Oh, that's a good question. So after the van, I got my first like real full-time job in Kirksville, Missouri, which is like one of the smallest markets in the country for news, like a very small. I think it's population like 20,000. It's right up on the Iowa-Missouri border. And so there is, I mean, we would cover some of the stuff, I mean, like grand opening of like Movie Tuesdays.
Right.
Like, that's not even a joke.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal.
Store, restaurant.
Yeah, because it was such a small town. And we would do a lot of farming stories. But then, you know, there'd like be a tornado that would come through, which would add some excitement. But in the beginning, it was really small stuff for sure.
Wow, that's
so interesting.
So then what was your jump from there then? You went to...
Yeah, so I was in Kirksville, Missouri, and then I was there for like 2 years, and I was anchoring. I mean, it was a small TV station, like very small. So I was right out of college, and I was anchoring the 10 o'clock news, just like this little guy, like, you know? Yeah. And it was so weird because it was this small town and everybody watched this one station because it's all there was. So it was like, you're almost like a celebrity in this.
Totally. Yeah.
And I made 22,000. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it was
what year was that?
It was like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So, you know, it was like a struggle, like, you know, paying for it. Luckily my parents would still help me and stuff because I didn't, you know, I didn't make a lot of money. And then I went from there to Savannah, Georgia. Which was a pretty big step.
That's a much bigger.
Have you guys been
market.
to Savannah?
Yeah, we have actually. We haven't like really visited. We went to South Carolina. We flew into Savannah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So yeah,
the airport's cool. We didn't
really. You should check out
airport.
Savannah.
Yeah.
It is so cool. It was an awesome place to live. So that was a huge step up. I moved to Savannah and I lived there for 3 years. And it's like this really cool downtown. It's all historic, super old. Kind of feels like you're living in a movie set. Like Forrest Gump was filmed there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I lived right downtown and that was awesome. And it's a very seedy area too. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of local politics drama. So that's kind of where I got really more like in the gritty crime. There was a lot to cover there.
Okay.
I would do ride-alongs with police, go out to shootings.
Cool. That's exciting.
And I was a one-man band, so I shot everything myself.
Oh, wow.
So I had my camera with me. And again, like you make relationships, I became friends with different police officers and they would call me like in the middle of the night, like, oh, we had a really bad shooting, you know, and I would get out there and
that's really cool.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Shot in the Dark, if you've ever seen that.
I haven't seen it. No.
A Netflix
that's a cool
doc.
show. You should watch that.
They're these independent journalists that they all drive like these blacked out like Dodge Chargers and stuff. They look like cop cars, but they just like listen to like police scanners, and then they go and try to just collect footage for the news stations and then sell the footage.
They're like stringers, we call them.
Exactly, stringers.
Yeah, you should watch that.
That sounds good. It reminds me of that Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
State of Watch.
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
Nightcrawler.
Oh, maybe I haven't seen that one.
It's good.
I was thinking State of Watch.
It was kind of like that though.
So you're just like rolling out there.
And again, there was this one sheriff outside Savannah that I became friendly with. And they would call, they would trust me to come out there and, be respectful and stuff. And so I remember there was this one meth bust. Meth was really big then in that area. And so they're like, we're going to do this bust, like come out, you'll go with us. And they busted in the door and I was right there. And I went in and everything and shot inside the house while they were doing all the arrests. And I remember I was like, this is like the greatest story ever. And I went to show my boss the next morning and they're like, you can't just go in people's house. Like, I don't know. I think they're like, you're not the police. You know what I mean? Like you have to stay on the sidewalk sometimes. Cause I just got a little carried away. Like,
that's kind of leading you.
Yeah. That's how I've always been though. A little like, ask for forgiveness later kind of thing, but I remember some of it we couldn't air cause they were like, you can't like, just cause the police are in there doesn't mean you can go right in their house,
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you first, or how did you end up at News Nation? How did that opportunity come about?
So yeah, I was in Miami working at the local Fox station doing investigative reporting for like the local station. And I heard about this new cable news outlet that was starting up. And they were looking for someone in Miami, which I didn't really want to leave South Florida. My parents are there. And it just, it seemed like a good, like, gosh, I could do this and travel, but this could still be my home base.
Yeah.
And I just started sending my videos, and it was during the pandemic. So it was like the heart of the pandemic. So I remember, there wasn't a lot of, I think I went there once for an interview, but there wasn't, you couldn't really travel much.
Right.
So it was kind of weird getting into something during that time.
Yeah.
It
was a weird time.
Yeah.
Was it a pretty small operation at the very beginning when you started?
Yeah. I would say there was probably maybe 100 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whereas now there's probably like 500 or something like that. So it's grown.
It's grown very
fast.
Because
we only did 3 hours in the beginning, because it used to be this station called WGN America that played movies and shows and stuff. And then they would just do 3 hours of News Nation at night. So we were just doing 3 hours, and now we're 24 hours. So if you watch News Nation, it's live
all the time,
all day, all weekend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of crazy that we've done this in 4 years.
I know. I was just going to say that. It's amazing. And have such a great team. I mean, so much talent. And I was telling you earlier too, just the passion just really shows through of everyone that's involved. And I think that's what makes it different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel so produced.
We have cool bosses for the most part. Like, there's a feeling that you can take risks.
Yeah.
And try to do things differently. Whereas again, at other networks, there's a game plan.
Yeah.
Well, especially with the history too, they've done things for so long.
Yeah.
In one way that they don't want to break the mold.
Right.
Versus you guys are still
works.
Forming.
They have good ratings for, some of these places. So for us, it's like, you have to be different.
Yep.
No one's going to watch if it's the same thing as the other stations.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Making something totally new. And I think people have really gravitated towards that too, that they're tired of the way things that are, have been done for so long.
Yeah.
And it's been really refreshing in the true crime space, because you guys have covered so many cases, and some of the ones that don't have all of the interesting elements and the, people following it, and you give the spotlight to those cases that need it most. I know you guys have the whole segment specifically. What, I can't remember the name.
Missing.
Yeah, it's
just
called Missing. Yeah.
Right.
It used to be called Missing in America. That's when we started. And then apparently it was someone else's name. Like, we got in trouble. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were like, we have to change the name right away.
Yeah. But it's really, really special to see. Like, I've worked with some of the families I've worked with that haven't got a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
The only coverage they have gotten is News Nation. And I know that's like meant the world to them.
Yeah, and it's meant the world to us too. Like it all came out of the Gabby Petito story.
Yeah.
Because there was so much interest in Gabby Petito. And I remember saying when it was kind of wrapping up, that we knew what happened, and she was sadly found dead, and Brian Laundrie was found dead. I'm like, we can't just, what are we going to just move on now? Like, we have kind of created this whole community of people, you know? And so I told, my first idea to my boss was like, let's go on like a missing road trip, like across the country and just interview people all along the way. And then we're like, well, let's actually do a weekly segment that focuses on just, and not just, you know, pretty young white women, but, which is something Gabby Petito's family was pushing. And I'm proud because a lot of other networks, like, they just kind of went back to business as normal after that. And we really, I mean, we've done one every week. Shout out to Paige Lobdell, who produces those, and Marnie Hughes, one of our anchors, does that every week. And it's really made a big difference.
Yeah, it's very valuable. And there's been so many times where, you know, in the past, before you guys started doing this, we would cover cases and there would be just no news coverage on a lot of them, that just nothing to work with. And unless we connected with the family, we didn't even know where to start, or there were some cases we started looking into and just there's not enough to even report on it. But yeah, we use News Nation as a source all the time. Well, so it's been so valuable to us.
Well, that's the thing. We do the stories on TV, but then they get shared.
Yes.
And then other people will pick them up, and it just gets the word out. Even missing men. People don't cover missing men.
No.
So we'll do men. Native Americans, whatever, just, you know, it's stuff that hasn't gotten coverage, basically.
And it's so needed.
And it's interesting too. I mean, it makes, I don't want to say it makes for a good news story, but, you know, there's a lot of pictures, there's interesting stories behind it. You meet the families. It's not boring TV. So that's, you know, for all the bosses out there, they should do it too. You know, every network should be doing it. You know?
I mean, these people's stories are so interesting, and to see the strength of these families, I think, is really inspiring. And, you know, oftentimes I find myself just so captivated in the way that the family has, it's just so inspiring to me that they can carry on even when they're not getting any support, or they're not getting any support from the police. And it's like, that is the story that I'm really interested in, is how they are managing, how they're trying to get the word out even when everything's working against them. Because you just covered Caleb Harris, right?
So I'm actually in the process of doing. I haven't gone out and interviewed them yet, but he's been on our missing segment before.
Yes. I just covered his case. It's actually not out. Well, it's probably going to be out by the time that this episode goes live. But I just covered that case, and their family's been amazing. I mean, they haven't gotten a lot of coverage, and it was really inspiring to see how they really pulled it all together and have really gotten the word out locally.
And it just adds pressure to the police the more that we all do.
It's crucial.
They feel, you know, they feel like they have to do something, because you interview these families and I hear the same thing a lot, like, oh, the police said, oh, the runaways are really common. They'll be back in a couple days. We have to wait a couple days. And if it's your family member, like, you know, that person, it's like, if Kendall just stopped calling you one day, or just, oh no, maybe she was just mad at you. You know what I mean?
She just took a 3-day
it's her right.
trip.
And you're like, no, I know she wouldn't not text me and leave our daughter here with it. Like, people just know, you know, and I don't know. It just drives me crazy when they don't get, even with Gabby Petito's parents, they got the runaround in the beginning.
Yeah. And it's very common. And even with minors, it always blows me away. Minors or just younger people, where they'll say, well, teenagers often run away, and it's just like, it's, you would think that would be your last, like, yes, that's a possibility, but you think you would explore all other options and make sure before you just, that's probably what it is. Or they'll find
every reason to, like, oh, well, they were doing some drugs.
Or,
you know, like, even I just spent a week out in Portland covering this serial killer there who's killed, or allegedly, and has just been arrested for killing 3 women and possibly more. But anyway, you know, they were good women that had gotten wrapped up in drugs. There's a lot of problems in Portland. It's easy to get pulled into that lifestyle there right now. And it didn't get barely even any local news coverage, just because people write these stories off. Because they're like, oh, sex worker, drugs, like.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
We see that all the time. And it's really, really frustrating. But I think people are opening their eyes more, just even since I started covering missing cases or, you know, murders. There was more judgment I felt from the audience than there is now. People are understanding that just because people had X, Y, and Z going on in their life doesn't mean they deserve any of these things, and they're still just as worthy of getting this coverage and talking about it. And people are really, I think opening up to that and expanding their interest, you know?
Well, and I think also like everybody has someone in their family or knows someone who's suffered from addiction or has had issues or, you know what I mean? You can relate to that. It's not everybody's perfect and has the perfect little life.
No one's perfect.
You know?
Yeah.
They still matter.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's huge. I'm curious too how you feel about, you know, like you said earlier, how minimal coverage is for minorities. That's something that we really have come across quite a bit. How, you know, when we go to research, there's like not a lot to work with when it comes to minorities, and even we've had issues with YouTube like suppressing content from minorities. Yeah, it's something that we deal with all the time. We're really frustrated, and we talked to them about it several times and can't really get an answer. But coverage is always
shockingly different.
Yep.
Shockingly lower interest and push from the algorithm.
Which I think a lot of it is push from the algorithm. That's like a huge part of it, which doesn't stop us from covering it. But I'm curious, has there been any like pushback from NewsNation, or are they just completely open to getting coverage for everybody?
No, there hasn't been pushback. And again, I think us doing the weekly segment, which I say weekly segment, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I mean, that's, you know, there's a lot of resources that go into it. There's a producer in charge of it. You know, there's a lot of research done behind the scenes. So there hasn't been pushback. I mean, they really are behind it.
Good.
And it's made me proud too, because even, you know, like the big bosses, there'll be a press release that goes out about something important happening at NewsNation, and they'll highlight our missing segment and how many cases we've done and how many, I can't remember the exact number now, but, you know, there's been a couple dozen that have been solved.
Yeah.
So I think they're really proud of it. And again, it's something that makes us different.
Yes.
And I just think it goes back to these old school ways of thinking, like that people aren't going to care because someone's a minority. Like it'll get just as much, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Times have changed.
Yeah. Times have changed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been more hopeful lately.
Yeah. And everybody has a story. Like, you know, it's TV, you do podcasts, that you have to make it interesting. Like, you know, but everybody has something interesting about them. You interview a family member of someone missing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just their story.
Their story. Yeah, there's always something, you know? So I wish more people would think like that, more journalists out there.
Yeah, well, I think the general true crime consumer has evolved a lot when it comes to that. And people are realizing, because when I grew up, I was always watching, you know, ID Discovery and like Snapped, and I just was so removed from it. To me, it was entertainment when I was a teenager. I just did not get it. These are real people going through these things. And I think it took for me to actually cover it and then spend a lot of time with families. That really changed everything.
Yeah.
And to realize that there's something to be interested in, even if it's doesn't have all these crazy elements and this entertainment value. It's the strength of these people and their own stories of the victims as well, and really connecting people with that versus just getting into the nitty-gritty details. I mean, that's what I find most interesting now is just learning about people.
Well, and I think some people on the outside think of it like it's like a video game or something.
Yes.
Like it's just entertainment. Yep. Whereas like for me, going out to these stories and covering them, you see the people face to face. Yeah. You just have a different you know, appreciation of what's going on.
Yep.
And also just personally, and I don't mean to I'm not trying to sound like I have a big head or I'm so good at what I do, but like I'm only willing to go so far too. Like I want to be able to fall asleep at night. Like I'm fine. I was a local reporter. I'm doing this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And if I don't know, I'm not gonna even with the Petitos, I'm not going to call them about every little thing. Maybe I'll get beat a couple times.
Right.
You know, the different families that I've made relationships with, I'd rather get beat than I just don't have it in me to be that guy.
Maintain the humanity.
Yeah. I don't know. That's more important. I feel like everything else will be okay.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big thing for us when we did a documentary on the Christian Andriacchio case. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but that was our first on-field experience, which we've only done twice now. But that really puts it into perspective, spending time with people, seeing everything and what they're going through. I mean, that just changed everything for us. And I think that's so cool about what you do is getting to meet all of these families. Have you ever had someone that you've talked to that really doesn't want the coverage, or they feel like difficult to
Yeah, I mean, like even with like with the Bryan Kohberger story with Idaho, I mean, a lot of those families, obviously Kaylee's family is very open to talking with us, but some of the others, Ethan Chapin's mom, who I really like, we've done a couple of interviews with her, but she's not quite as comfortable as talking all the time, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just have to respect that. Everybody deals with these things
so differently.
you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've covered so many of these stories, but I've still never had like a loved one be murdered. I mean, I don't really know what that feels like.
No, I mean, how could you ever know unless you're going through it?
So I'm just not going to be, like I said, again, I've been beat sometimes because people will just, I'm not going to do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's more important. At the end of your life, that's going to be what you're proud of.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think too.
Yeah. I think that's.
And do we all push it a little? I mean, have I crossed the line before? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're a journalist. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Too.
And in those moments, you're making those split-second decisions. Like, do I want? Usually, I'll just go for it, but not in terms with family members and families. You know?
Yeah. Well, like I said, that respect really shows through, and it's just so refreshing.
Thank you.
Especially because I've been covering true crime for a long time, and I'm very critical of media and even documentaries and some of the shows. I know people who have done those, and their experience has not been great.
Yeah.
They feel like it's purely just about the entertainment value, and news. I just can't say enough good things about News Nation.
The other thing
I'm
with
so
like
excited
being in news is different than documentaries and stuff, because we're out there covering it like while it's happening in development. So it's not like some of these other documentaries and stuff will come in a year, 2 years later. They have to kind of make a story.
Yeah.
They have to figure out what their angle is, what's going to make it fresh and new again. Like we're there, we're just covering it happening.
Yeah.
So it's different,
Would you say that true crime coverage is your favorite right now?
No, I wouldn't say no. I still just like, I think kind of like even watching some of your episodes, like you guys are just interested in all sorts of things, anything that piques your interest. Like that's kind of how I am too. So I've kind of struggled with like getting labeled as just like a true crime person.
Well, you're so good at it.
Yeah, but before Gabby Petito, and now even, I do all sorts. Like I told you, I'm going to do, Chinese black market marijuana in Oklahoma. After I leave here, I became obsessed with bunkers. Like why are so many people building bunkers? So we went to South Dakota and we went to Indiana and like stayed in people's bunkers with them.
What was that like?
It was interesting. There's this whole culture of like people who spend a lot of money. They really think that something bad's going to happen, or they want to have a place to go. So I did, I'm always up to something, but if there's a big crime story, I'm definitely drawn to it.
Interesting. I got to know more about the bunkers. What is that? What does it look like? How big are they?
Yeah. So we went to two places. We went to the one in South Dakota, which is this, it's an old army base where there's like probably 500 old like bunkers from like, 100 years ago where they would keep bombs that someone bought and is now selling each individual one to people who want to like retrofit them into homes.
Interesting.
So that was interesting. And they're basically like these concrete bubbles in the middle of nowhere. And people live in there and there's nothing around. And we went out there. And that was another one of the places people were like, even when we were driving in, and we had kind of made arrangements, but it was a little, it's always until you get there and they let you in, it's a little, are they really going to let us in? But even at the gas station, the gas station lady in the middle of nowhere, she's like, you realize like you're taking a huge risk going out there. And they're like, they're a militia. And we go out there like, they were nice, But it's just so funny. People come up with these conspiracy theories about people. And it's like, they're worried about the world. They're worried, but, they're not going to shoot anybody, So we did that one. And then we went to Indiana, which was kind of a more fancy bunker that this man had. It was just underground. I think he had like 6 or 7 bedrooms, really nice inside. And basically just, they think if, they think back to the pandemic, or they think if some kind of nuclear war or anything, that's where they would go. I think it's also kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of get it a little bit.
Yes.
Like, it's
totally.
like kind of like almost like you make your garage cool or something. Like if you have a lot of money, like why not make a bunker? Like For a lot of the guys, I think it was like that too.
Yeah,
you know. But even like Zuckerberg in our story, we included a lot of these rich people have.
Oh, I'm sure.
Have bunkers or panic rooms.
Don't the Kardashians have?
I'm sure.
I think they do. Yeah.
I mean, when you have just excess money, you know, why not?
Totally.
You know?
I don't get it. If there's an apocalypse, I'm out. I have no.
Well, that was kind of my whole thing throughout. I'm just like, would you really? Because in the fancy Indiana one, they had farming, you know, with lights.
Oh, yeah.
They had enough medical supplies to last a year. They had enough food to last a year. They had that one was really tricked out. Like they were ready. It was sealed. Like even if a tsunami, they said, came all the way to Indiana, like the water wouldn't get in. Like they were ready for everything. And my thing was like, would you really want to be down here for? Like,
that's what I don't get it.
Just die. Like,
same.
You know,
I'd be like, put me out.
Yeah. But again, I think part of it was just the thrill of I have a lot of money and can I come up with something?
Yeah, it's like a project.
Yeah, it's a project.
Yeah. Interesting. That's super.
Yeah, it was cool. But anyway, that's what I like all sorts of weird stuff, you know?
Yeah. It's so exciting. Yeah, we definitely want to talk to you about UFOs a little bit too, because I know you got some interest there. We'll get into that later. I did want to, before we move forward, I wanted to talk to you about the Daybell case.
Okay.
And what that was like, because you really started your coverage on that when the trial happened.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, I was there for most of Lori's trial.
What was that like? When you were in the courtroom?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I was in the courtroom.
So you saw her and everything?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw her. Yeah, it was super interesting because it wasn't that big of a courtroom, and I was there. I want to say I was there probably 75% of the time, sitting by, like, we would sit right by the jurors, like on that side of the room.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was just so disturbing, the whole thing, the whole
God,
cult,
it's
the whole
horrible.
how people could get pulled into that.
Yeah.
What happened to those poor kids?
Oh my, it's so awful.
I got to know the grandparents while I was there.
Yeah.
Which they're also really strong. You know, you talk about strong
Totally.
families. I mean, what they've been doing and
gosh.
having to go through Chad's trial now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting covering those trials like that. Is a whole different experience from like the on the ground kind of breaking news when there's a murder or something, because it's kind of a more controlled environment. You know what time it's going to start every day. But then it's kind of more disturbing in some ways because like a lot comes out during the trials and like the autopsy photos.
I know.
And just being in there for all of that.
I couldn't
see
that. That's tough, man.
Yeah, and you just feel for the families sitting through that.
Yes.
And having to stare at the person who's, you know,
responsible. Yeah, they're right there.
Especially her just being
and
so
like she was
heartless.
laughing and stuff sometimes, and even her lawyer. That's the other thing interesting about trial coverage. When you're there for like a month, you really like get to know a lot of the people involved because you're on the breaks together. Everybody leaves for lunch at the same time, so you get to know the lawyers on both sides. You get to, and even her lawyer, you could tell was kind of like not fully.
Yeah,
you know, everybody has a job. He had a job to do, but
right.
You know, I think he even.
He's like, this is a tough one.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah.
That one we covered that in the really early days. I think they were still in Hawaii. Right. I'm trying to remember back.
I mean, it's been a few
when
years.
They first arrested them.
Yeah.
I believe, but we kind of had to pull back on that. We covered it initially, and then once more of the details came back, I was like, I just cannot talk about this. We've gotten a lot of requests to continue coverage on it. We just haven't because I don't know. There's just some cases where it just gets me. It's
you
so
talk about Hawaii.
awful.
I just think back to that video. I think it was body camera video when they served her with the papers.
Yes, that's what it was.
When
they
she was
served
on the lounge chair in the bikini
Yep.
with Chad, and it was basically like the papers about the kids being missing.
Yeah.
And she was so like flippant.
Yeah. Whatever.
And it was just like, oh my
bunch
God.
of idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you just hated her so much in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, every moment.
Yeah.
I don't stand that woman.
And the autopsy photos were just.
Oh my
and
gosh.
the fact that like it was just.
So you saw all of that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I cannot imagine.
Yeah. You kind of feel a little bit of an obligation, like as a reporter to.
Yeah.
Because then you have to get on. And, you know, there weren't cameras allowed. I'm trying to remember. It was just audio for Lori's. So they would release the audio at the end of the day, but there were no cameras. So you had to kind of like. You have to be that person who comes out and tells people what happened and what it looked like, what it felt like. So, yeah.
Yeah. Really, really brutal. That would have been really tough. Is there ever a moment where you get emotional, like on the job? I mean, I'm sure afterwards. I know you probably do, but have you ever had a moment where you start like tearing up or anything like on camera or?
Not on camera. Because I'm pretty good about like controlling that.
Yeah. It's crucial.
Trying not to make it about me on TV.
Exactly. That's
whatever.
why it's so important to do that.
Yeah. But behind the scenes, like, even with just since we were talking about Gabby Petito, there was one time when I was outside the laundry's house. I remember it was like a Friday, I think, when the body camera got released from Moab.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was all sorts of thoughts that he was abusing her, but no one really knew. Yeah. And then that video came out and you like saw her sitting in the car crying, and remember the whole long video that kind of showed what was going on.
Yep. I went
and
through that
I
many
remember,
times.
I remember like I did it on NewsNation, and then I was doing like a Twitter live, and I remember just like kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have to go home. Yeah. And I was so committed to being there all the time. But I felt like I had crossed the line like away from journalism. Like I was so upset about it and like angry and just kind of lost my, I don't know, focus and just doing the job,
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, I got to go home this weekend. Like I
totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are times where I'm covering cases and the same thing, like I'll start tearing up in recordings and I normally just turn it off. I've had a few times where I'll like kind of let it flow a little bit while I'm on camera, but I always feel like then it's making it about me. But it's like, how can you not? Some of these cases are just so beyond horrific that you have to feel it. How do you disconnect when you are off? Are you able to kind of stop thinking about it, or is it kind of always there?
Yeah, it just depends. Like if you're in the middle of a big story, it's kind of always there.
Yeah.
Just because you're like wondering, oh God, is today? Even with Kohberger, I was in Idaho for like, I think also over a month straight. And, he was not caught yet. And then I went home and you're just constantly like, oh God, did I just leave? And this is when this is all going to go down, He ended up getting caught in Pennsylvania, so I flew to Pennsylvania. But it's hard to detach. But, you have to.
Yeah.
I also like, I like to have fun too. And you have to have a normal, like a life outside of it all. Or you'd just be sad all the time,
Dude, I went through a period like that where I was just like kind of always depressed and thinking about it. Like I started having dreams about the cases I was covering and I was like, okay, I got to have.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't go out and do much. I'm like a pretty boring person. So for me, it's like watching the most ridiculous Bravo reality TV I can and like
totally
unwind, like
or just with the dogs
unplug.
Or,
getting outside. I have to like really, I've learned over the years how to turn it off in between, but it's tough to do because you can get really invested in over the years. Like I know Gabby's case was when I was like really, really invested. Like, I had alerts for your tweets and for JB Buno and just was like so in it. Which it can be really exciting, but it can definitely take a toll. And
it's just the sadness too. I mean, it hits you because some of it's adrenaline when you're covering it, but then later on, usually for me when it's done, it like hits me.
Yep.
Like once, not when I say done, I mean like there's been an arrest or there's kind of been that moment where you feel like as a reporter you can take a deep breath and then like the emotions come.
Yep. Which is natural. I mean, that shows that you're human to feel that stuff. Because you also covered Ruby Franke. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like?
So that one was more also just disturbing and
very disturbing,
angry, especially the more recent stuff that's come out with the video.
Yep, I couldn't even cover it after
when
that.
He went to the neighbors.
Yep.
So that one was, and just the fact that she, is making her living trying to tell people how to be a good parent and stuff.
Yep. Selling these courses.
Yeah. It just shows you like you think you know people, but people have these dark sides.
Well, and I mean, because I'm like totally clued in on the whole YouTube, for the most part, not as clued in as I probably should be. But I remember hearing about Ruby Franke for so long. I had never seen any of their videos, but I'd seen people commenting or requesting that I look into this family. And I knew people were reporting them to CPS for a long time. And for a while there, I thought like, they're probably shitty, but I thought it was a little overblown that people were calling CPS. I had no idea, could not have imagined how bad it was. Even when the story first broke, I just had no idea until I think it was that 2020 came out and just seeing the reality of how brutal it was.
Yeah. You have to wonder how many people knew.
Oh, yeah.
In a story like that, you know, it's like, how can this really be a secret from extended family members and friends?
No, people knew.
Yeah.
They had to have.
Kind of shifting gears, I want to talk about the Idaho murders a little bit. I mean, obviously that one just so tragic and really captivated all of us, especially before we knew it was Bryan Kohberger. So with a case like that, you're heading to Idaho to report on that. Like, what do you do? Like, what's the game plan when you show up to a case like that? and how do you get information? How do you begin to talk about theories and stuff? Can you kind of take us a little bit through that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember with that one. I was actually in Mexico on vacation.
Oh, wow.
And like one of the producers I work with was like, I think you need to go to Idaho. Like, this is really bad what's happening there.
Yeah.
So I went to Idaho, and it was kind of another one where I ended up just staying there for a really long time. And just trying to remember, like, when I first got there, I don't really have a specific like process.
Really?
No, not really. Like, I mean, obviously go to the place where it allegedly happened. So I went to the house.
And how early on was that?
It was, I'm trying to remember. I think maybe a couple weeks after. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was right when it was starting to get more kind of attention.
Yeah.
And then also, like, one of my priorities is always like establishing some kind of relationship with the police, because if I'm going to be there long term,
you want them to know who you are.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're going to get the updates, that they know you're going to be staying there, that, you know, this is my phone number, you know, can I get on your email list?
Yeah.
Just kind of making that face-to-face contact. That's something I normally do. And then reaching out to victims' families, I usually do pretty quickly, which, you know, again, is always kind of the hard part.
And then is your team with you on site for that? Are they like diving into, you know, the research and everything?
Yeah.
And kind of like creating the schedule for you, or is it back in Florida you're kind of doing it remotely?
It's kind of both. Yeah. So like, I'll be with a producer out there who'll be helping me, and we'll be figuring out like kind of what our game plan is, and our schedule for the day, and what we think we might be able to figure out that day. It's just kind of day by day though, because you don't really know, like, again, when it's developing like that.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to
come
out. You might hear,
oh,
there's going to be a press conference tomorrow. Okay, we should stay in this area tomorrow because we don't want to miss that. You're just constantly trying to sort of juggle that.
Are you working with other networks as well? Like, do you guys share information, or is it very like...
it's kind of a mixture. Yeah, I have some friends at other networks that, you know, I mean, if you're going to be on a story together for a month, you know, you help each other out somewhat, you know, especially if it's like, hey, I got to get home for the weekend. Can you just text me if you're here? I mean, you know, you want to...
Sure.
But for the, you know, I kind of do my own thing a lot too, though.
Did you know that most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions? But get this, the real number is closer to $300. That's literally thousands of dollars a year, half of which we've probably forgotten about. Which, God, that's where they get you with subscriptions these days. You know, you get the free trial, but you got to put your credit card in. Before you know it, you forget about it, and then you get charged month after month after month for a subscription you don't use. And now with our phones and streaming services, it's so easy to rack up subscriptions and completely forget about it and waste hundreds and even thousands of dollars. But thankfully, once I started using Rocket Money, which is one of my favorite apps I use on the daily. If you're not familiar with it, it is the personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. I just love Rocket Money because it gave me full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all of them in one place, which is truly amazing. I don't have to comb through statements and try to like figure it out on my own, taking all that time. This does it all for you. It's so easy. I love the dashboard. I can see my spending month over month. I can see what my upcoming bills are, how much they are. If you find subscriptions that you don't use anymore, you can have Rocket Money cancel those with just a few taps. Not only that, Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is submit a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. They'll deal with the customer service for you. It's an amazing time saver, and it'll save you a ton of money. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/milehigher. That's rocketmoney.com/milehigher. Let them know we sent you at rocketmoney.com/milehigher. Do people ever come up and ask you and be like, hey, do you know about this or that? And you're like, no.
Yeah. And I'm usually pretty helpful with people for the most part in terms of like colleagues and stuff, especially like with covering like court cases. You're going to be there for a month, and you know, it's like, hey, I'm not feeling that well today. Can you just let me know what happened? I mean, again, you make friends, so you're going to help each other out.
So with theories, like obviously the Idaho Murders had a lot of theories around who it could be, you know, and then once we found out it was Bryan Kohberger, how it all went down, like how do you guys, at what point do you get on camera and be like, here's the theories? And obviously you got to take a very non-biased approach and make sure you're not promoting one theory over the other, but is there like a certain way that you think about that? Or
well, I just try to stick to like the facts of what I know, which I think is kind of what people like about me during those situations when something's happening, like in the moment, because there are so many theories on social media and you can get that from like a million people where they'll think about what happened and they'll be like, oh, but the cousin was a drug dealer. And you're thinking like, well, the cousin has nothing to do with this. Doesn't even live in the same state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just stick to like really of what I can figure out on my own and confirm.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
And again, sometimes like I won't win, you know, I won't be the first one, but I just, unless I can really get it confirmed myself, it's just not worth it. Like getting something really big,
really wrong.
I mean, it would be really terrible. You know?
It could damage the case.
Yeah.
I mean, and make things so much
like
worse.
Even yesterday, did you guys follow Rachel Morin at all? The Rachel Morin?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you saw the arrest that just happened.
Yep.
Even with that, like we had the booking photo, we had the fact that the guy was booked. We knew there was a police press conference and a lot of people were just running with it. But like, I don't know, until we knew for sure that that was the guy that it's just, I don't want to take that risk ever of getting something wrong. So we waited until we got it like officially.
Yeah, that's, I think, super crucial.
Yeah.
And sets you guys apart, and you specifically as a reporter. I
do want to ask him about, we just covered Chelsea Grimm very recently, and you guys were like the only ones who had covered that case, which is kind of shocking because there's just so much to it. There's so many possibilities with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she still hasn't been found. She was, I'm just, sometimes there's so many.
Yeah,
she's the one who, she was in her car, right?
Yes.
And went out to the wooded area.
She had the bearded dragon.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, there's kind of some idea, you know, possible cults out there in the desert. And I think you talked to their family too, I believe.
Yeah, we interviewed her mom and dad initially. And I think they had later got a private investigator that we talked to. So we've stayed on top of that one. And that was another one I remember people were just kind of like discounting, like, oh, but what if she killed herself, or took her own life, or what?
Yeah.
But it's like,
we didn't even get into that.
The family still needs closure. They still need, know?
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's very unlikely. Too.
Yeah.
I'd lean towards that the least.
Yeah.
What did you think of, I'm sure it's probably hard to remember but the body cam footage, the police cam, when they talked to her, she was kind of sitting out there at the, she did that whole project. I'm trying to forget, what is the name of it? The photography. Yeah.
The Forgotten People.
The Forgotten People
she
of
was
America.
going to like graveyards, right? And
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think she was just capturing, the Forgotten People of America was what she was all about. And she seemed kind of disoriented in this, or at least maybe just emotional.
Yeah.
Do you remember that footage at all?
Oh yeah, I remember it because I remember we watched it with the parents when we did the interview with them.
Oh wow.
And I remember the parents saying that she seemed a little like not like herself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just very mysterious.
That whole case is mysterious. I mean, there's the whole element of her going to that hotel room and they tried to take her card and she is like, oh, well, I'm worried about giving you that information. And she ends up not giving them the card.
And she was originally going to fly, but didn't want to because of the bearded dragon, right?
Yep. Yeah. Because he's like an emotional support. Yeah. Or I think the bearded dragon was a girl, right? Roxy was her name.
Yeah.
But yeah, she had tried to pay for that hotel room in euros, and the whole thing is so strange. And her like a estranged ex-boyfriend who she thought was stalking her, and he had tried to make like a GoFundMe, and it was just really, really bizarre.
Have you guys done a recent one on it?
Yeah, we did just like a week or two.
I'll have to watch it because it's been a while.
It's been like 6 months.
6 months since we did it or more.
Yeah, and I know there's like only so much brain capacity to
we
remember
need to revisit
every detail.
It though,
yeah, you should. It's interesting. How often have you ever covered a case of someone who went missing purposely and showed up later on?
Well, the woman in Alabama, remember? what was her name on the highway? She went missing on the highway. What was her name? And she was charged. She ended up getting criminally charged.
Oh, yes. Oh, of course. Oh my God.
What was her name again?
That one. Oh, why am I forgetting her name?
You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, because we were really into it when she was missing.
Janelle can look it up. Yeah. Yes, I remember. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it
Carly
seemed
Russell.
weird.
Carly Russell. Yeah.
Russell.
So that was one where she wasn't really missing.
Well, I mean, and it didn't take long for people to start putting that together. I mean, I was like, it was very early on that. And there was a lot of discourse online too of people getting angry that some people were pointing out, well, this is strange and this is strange.
Yeah.
And, once the footage came out and everything, that was kind of put it all.
I've done a couple though where they've been found for sure, where they were just, I mean, it's uncommon, but where they did just take off mental health breakdown or just, wanted to get away.
Do you think there's a chance of that with Chelsea?
It's been so long. I don't know. My gut, I don't know. I would hope so.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said. Yeah, I mean, that would be the best case scenario. Yeah. I mean, we kind of went on, there's a lot of communes and things like that in that area as well. So we thought maybe, I don't know. It's
interesting too, the few that I've done, there was a woman in Georgia, I'm trying to remember her name. This has been a while, who we went really big on it. And then she was found fine, she had just taken off. Some people are so bothered by that. And they were like, well, you wasted all that time and you could have been doing a different case. And it's like,
oh, they're bothered by you guys covering
they're
it?
Just,
how would you have known?
Correct. Or are they just are they mad at the person, which I get that. I mean, it is annoying, but I don't know. I guess I just move on from it quickly. I'm like, okay, well, people have issues. And
I mean, I understand people's anger when it's someone who purposely did it for attention. Right,
like Carly Russell was pretty angry.
Yeah, very angry. That one
have
really
you
pissed me off, but.
Have you ever done any stories on cults or gotten in close to anybody in a cult?
I actually want to. That's one thing I want to do.
There's a lot.
Yeah. I've always thought it would be interesting to try to embed in a cult or somehow do that. Probably the Lori Vallow. Yeah. That was probably the closest that I've come to because that was pretty cultish.
Yeah. Yeah, we just covered the week before this episode. I'm sure you've kind of seen it. It's been a big Netflix thing, the Dancing with the Devil or Dancing for the Devil.
Yes.
Robert Shin and the Shekinah Church.
You should go look into that.
Yes.
That one's wild.
So you guys did it?
Yeah, we just covered it last week.
Wow.
And there's way more. I mean, Netflix left out a lot, and I'm sure there's reasons for that, but it was pretty violent too, especially the past. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and that would be interesting to go
what always amazes me with these cults is it's like anybody can get sucked in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is more intelligent people that get sucked in. Yep. And I just think that when you think about how freaky that is, because you think I would never fall for one. But it's...
You never know.
Yeah, you never know, which I think it's hard to wrap your mind around that.
Mm-hmm. That's what's so interesting too, documentaries about cults is the Dancing for the Devil had a lot of people who were in it for a pretty short period of time, but they're just can't believe I ended up in this and I didn't even realize what it was until I was deep into it. And they're very normal people who you wouldn't think. And I think everyone likes to say they wouldn't fall for something like that, but it's these people are really manipulative and powerful and
and they're
especially when they're looking for the right victim. And that was a big thing in the Dancing for the Devil is, they're looking for people who, a lot of them were struggling artists trying to make their way in dance, and there's tons of dancers and not a whole lot of opportunity. So he I can get you the fame, the money, all the tools you need. He had them living in houses that he was paying for. And it's pretty wild stuff.
Isn't it crazy?
It is.
You have to wonder, I don't know, with social media now, is it harder for them to suck people in?
I think it might.
It's
like a good tool.
It's easier, you think? Yeah.
Because they can find people and reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've covered quite a bit of cults and some of it gets pretty wild. It's interesting stuff. But kind of scary.
It is scary.
Very scary.
Again, every time we've interviewed a cult expert and they explain that it's the people you would least expect sometimes. That always is the part that freaks me out the most.
I know, me too. And you would really be surprised listening to some of these people. They seem so normal and would never have guessed.
Well, it's crazy. 9 times out of 10, there's always somebody at the top of the cult who claims to have this divine connection to God. Even with the Daybells, you know, it's always usually a male who's at the top who, claims they have some power capability to predict the future and that connection to God.
And the fact that that power or whatever you call it was that strong that you would believe your own kids were evil.
Yeah.
And had been, they
really
turned,
believed that.
Like, I can't even imagine,
No.
I mean, it makes you, I don't know. It's crazy.
It's sickening. I mean,
and that was one thing with Lori that I always struggled with, sitting there, like staring at her, wondering, like, did she actually believe these things?
Or is it more of an act?
Yeah. Or is it more of an act?
What's your gut feeling?
It's just hard to think that a mom would do that unless she really believed it.
I think she really does.
I don't think it's an excuse.
No, of course not.
I mean, I don't care. Like,
no.
I think she should be punished just the same. But,
yeah.
And I think I thought a lot about this too. Was she still believing it? Because you could tell, she was giddy in court and she was like, was that like almost a defense mechanism to not have to accept that she did that to her own? Yeah.
I could see that too. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you got to like work it any way you can in your mind.
Right. Just to cope.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause Chad's trial just wrapped up pretty recently, right?
Yeah. I think it was like about a week and 2 weeks ago.
Did you cover that?
No.
No.
I mean, just from afar. I never went out for it or anything like that. No.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But that was really no surprise the way that ended.
No.
No, those guys just deserve everything they got coming to them.
Yeah.
So what will your coverage going forward be when it comes to Bryan Kohberger? And before I get into that, what do you think has interested people so much in the Idaho case? I
mean, I think it's the fact that it was a college town that, everybody can relate to that if they went to college or if they have kids in college, and that they were just these innocent kids. I mean, there was no, some cases it's like, oh, it was gang related, or, just the fact that it was, could have been anybody.
Yep. Really could have been.
So I think initially that, quiet college town. And then I think when he was arrested, it just kind of exploded because it is kind of like a movie. The fact that he was studying criminology and getting his PhD, and it's just wild and freaky.
And you recently got to meet his professor.
I did.
Right?
Yeah. Catherine Ramsland. Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, where he got his master's in criminology, she was his professor and advisor and taught him. And she's very careful. She's a really interesting woman. You guys should talk to her sometime. She's like one of the preeminent experts on serial killers. She did a bunch on BTK and interviewed BTK and wrote a book about him. So it's very strange for her, obviously, as you can imagine, to be an expert on the serial killer and then one of your students ends up being a serial killer, allegedly. So, but she won't talk about that, right? I think she's concerned about, like it's still moving through the court process, and she's very like professional about that. But
there was a gag for a while, right?
And there still is.
Okay,
which makes it challenging to cover. I mean, there's a lot. It's a very strict gag order, so
not a whole lot has come out in the last year.
I think that's going to be one of those trials whenever it does happen, where like we're going to learn so much.
Yeah.
Because all we know is still the basics of what was in the probable cause affidavit, when they arrested Bryan Kohberger, which laid it out, pretty well. But there's still so much like that we don't know about, why that house, why those kids,
Did you ever go out to his parents' house?
I did.
What was that like?
Yeah. So like when we talk about kind of crossing the line sometimes, I went to his, so basically, I went home to Florida during all this. I'd been in Idaho for a really long time, and he still wasn't arrested. And then I got this tip that he was arrested in Pennsylvania. And like no one knew yet. And I wasn't even positive. It was from like an okay source, but not a source where I was going to report it, but a good enough source where I was like, I got on a plane to Pennsylvania. I'm like, I need to at least go to Pennsylvania.
Because that was like, what, the first week of January?
Yeah.
Right
around there.
New Year's.
Yeah. So I went to Pennsylvania. It turns out he was arrested. Which was like so weird to be there and see him, and they walked him into the courthouse and everything. But his parents live in this gated community near there. It's like each house is on like an acre, but it's gated, there's a guard gate and everything. And that's where he was staying. Remember when they went through the trash and everything? And so
and he tried, what did he do? Didn't he try to put it in the neighbor's trash can? Or I'm like,
he was taking the trash to the neighbors. Yes. But again, they're big lots. So it was, it wasn't just like an easy little thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
So I did go to his parents' house. Actually, someone DM'd me on Twitter and said, I live in the neighborhood, because all the media was outside the neighborhood, like, because it was the guard. And they're like, I live in the neighborhood. I can get you in.
Wow.
So I was like, well, meet me at this there was a gas station over there. I'm like, meet me at the gas station. So she met me there. And, it was like, make sure she wasn't totally like crazy or something.
Yeah, of course.
So she took me in just by myself in her car. So we went to the Kohberger's house, and she waited for me down on the drive. And I went up, and they had the glass was shattered because, they had busted in when they arrested him. And I videoed it all. And I actually got a lot of like blowback for that. People felt bad for the Kohberger, which I get, it's not their fault. And they were in a gated neighborhood, and suddenly it was really dark, and I was like banging on their door and talking to them through the window, Oh,
you talked to them?
Well, they just basically said, go away. Yeah. Okay. That's what I mean by talking. Which again, like looking back, I probably honestly still would have done it.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people that were like, you crossed the line. Like these poor parents are also suffering. You snuck into their neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, you never know. Like people, they may have opened the door and been like, he didn't do it. Let me tell you why.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to, you're a journalist. You got to take those chances sometimes. Yeah. I think you do a good job of, towing the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, how interesting. I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
And luckily that woman I met on Twitter, she waited for me. They were like, get out of here. So I ran back down to her car.
Let's go.
I got in. I'm like, thank you so much. Can you take me back to the gas station? Where like my crew was waiting for me. They're like, you're insane.
Yeah.
You got to be a little insane. Yeah. That's how you find these stories.
Has that ever really paid off for you though? Like, have you ever had a story where you did do something like that and it was like
took a risk,
being a huge thing?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example, but yeah, that's why you do it, because it's like 9 times out of 10 you get nothing, but that one time you get lucky, and you're glad you like. That was always my thing, even in local news. Like I would just like keep knocking on doors. Like if we were in a neighborhood doing a story, and the other reporters like knock on 2 doors, like I would just keep, because you never know, like you get that one where they're like, oh, actually we do have video from our Ring camera.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I knocked on 10 more doors,
Do you ever get like,
sorry.
Wow. Do you ever get nervous doing that?
It's weird because I'm kind of like a nervous person in real life, or like a little more withdrawn, but once I'm like on the job,
I just
kind of go the adrenaline, and just kind of like you get in the zone of wanting to, like I wish I could think of a good example of where it paid off, but it has before for sure. Yeah.
We had one experience like that in Jessica's documentary, going up to Justin's store, and we were terrified. I can't imagine doing that all the time.
Yeah.
It took up we were just building ourselves up for so long.
Or sometimes you'll just drive around the block like 10 times.
Yeah.
Just trying to get the courage.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Or at least in that time, you might also get the feeling of like, I shouldn't do this. Like you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'll drive around a lot. Or I have another little like trick I say is I'll sometimes if you're scared or something, I'll just park outside someone's house, and then sometimes they'll come out to you because
they're like,
who's this
parked
person parked, and so you just wait kind of, and then they'll come out, and that way it's like a little less intrusive.
You're not like at their door looking into their house.
Right. Yeah.
They're approaching you.
Yeah. And these are usually people like, if it's like a bad guy or something, like you don't really feel bad. Like if you're going after someone who, you think did something or is connected.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. But it's with the victims' families and stuff, you try to be a little more sensitive.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever been in a dangerous situation where you could have been hurt or worse? Or?
I'm sure, yeah.
Probably just didn't even realize it.
Yeah, or I've had like weird, like,
have you been
people, like
gun
calling me and stuff.
At you or anything?
Like even during Petito, actually. Because there were a lot of like pro Bryan laundry people.
Yeah, I
like
remember
there was like
that.
this weird cult thing. Same with Bryan Kohberger now,
Yeah.
And so there were people who would like call me on my cell phone. I don't even know how they got my number, and be like, and they would like know my mom's name, Kathy. Like, how would you feel if we were outside Kathy's house? Oh
my God, that's freaky.
Meanwhile, I'm like, my mom is a badass, so like,
don't try her.
If you go to my mom's house, like, she'll freaking take you out. But but no, like stuff like that. It's just like, but again, you put yourself out there, so I'm sure it's gonna happen.
So it doesn't really worry you that much at all, or do you guys like think about the area you're going to? Like this could happen. Do you have like a safety plan, or is there any like? Yeah,
we do.
Just keep 911 on speed dial,
or just like try to be but just like know where the line is, I guess. Especially because you're dealing with people who, again, like a lot of people are having the worst day of their life, or even if they're the family of someone who's been arrested, or even if they are the person who was arrested that just bonded out. Like a lot of times we'll wait outside of jail for someone to come out so we can ask them questions when they bond out. Like you're dealing with people who are so emotionally charged.
Yes.
Like you kind of have to expect something, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and then you're there with a camera in their face.
Yep.
So
I think that kind of helps with safety by like recording everything.
Yeah, well, actually, it does. I think it's nice to have it on recording.
It's like, well, if you do something to me, it's all going to be filmed.
Yeah,
so.
And that too. But even like, you know, I've been pushed before, and I'm not gonna. Some other people I know in the business, like, oh, I'm calling the police. Like that's assault. It's like, well, we just bum rushed the guy when he bonded out of jail. Like, I mean, he's obvious. What were we expecting? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I'm not gonna call the police. You know, obviously, if they like made me bleed or something, but I don't know. I think some of it you just have to. You're kind of like poking the bear sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard line to walk. I can't even imagine. It'd be so hard. Let's get into, I wanted to talk to you about some of your UFO coverage.
Yeah.
I know you have, has that always been an interest for you?
No.
Really?
No, that kind of came out of nowhere too. Like just.
You never like thought about UFOs?
Well, no,
aliens
I thought
before,
about them and like was always kind of, again, I told you I'm like kind of an open-minded person. So I was never like, oh, they're definitely not real. But it was never like a hobby or I never was like a believer. Yeah. I just kind of assumed like, you know, the universe is so big. How can we be the only people? But beyond that, I didn't do much research or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of just thrown into it when the whole David Grush story came out.
Which was another big moment for News Nation.
Huge moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were I think the only ones live streaming it.
Yeah, we were the ones who got the interview with
David Grush.
Yes.
Yeah, which kind of like caused the congressional hearings. Like, I mean, I don't want to take a full credit, not me, but News Nation, but I think News Nation really did get the ball rolling with all of this recent UFO interest.
For sure.
But yeah, so they basically were like, we're going to start, you know, David Grush is going to talk. And I was kind of happy that I didn't know much because I kind of went at it like just a normal story. Like, you know, what can we prove? What's fact? What's not? What documents can we get? Whereas some of the people who have been covering UFOs forever, like they kind of become believers and like it kind of becomes like a passion. Totally. Whereas I just kind of went at it like almost like covering a crime. Like, let me read the reports.
Yeah.
Let me see what we can find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, so gosh, that must have been a big decision for the network to be like, all right, we're going to air this whistleblower.
It was. And he had talked to, you know, there was discussion about him being in other outlets too. I think the Washington Post and big outlets were really scared to do the story.
Yeah.
I don't really know why. Cause I mean, he was who he said he was. He wasn't, I don't know we couldn't prove everything he said, but we could prove that he was like at the highest level of the intel community and had the highest level of security clearance. So if you're granted those permissions, like you kind of have to take the guy seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
So a lot of people wouldn't do it. And yeah, we did it. You know, we did it. Yeah.
What'd you make of some of his claims around, obviously the big thing is there's black programs, top secret stuff. Like from your research, how do you feel about the Pentagon and, obviously a lot of their budget is a mystery and all of that. Was that kind of new for you during this process?
It was, yeah.
Did that shock you? Were you
it did shock me.
Whoa, what the hell?
Yeah, it shocked me. It shocked me, but it wouldn't surprise me if the government had secret programs. I mean, and there's a whole percentage of the defense budget, a big percentage that is not accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
So it, again, the things he said, while hard to kind of wrap your mind around, are possible.
So you feel like obviously secret crash retrieval program that's been going on for a long time, all the way back to Roswell. I don't know how versed you are in UFO history, but Roswell being the big first one here in the United States, and Area 51 and Bob Lazar, and obviously I loved your segment with
George Knapp.
Yes, thank you. And been following him for a long time. I've been very interested.
Oh, so you're into this?
Oh, yeah.
We've done a lot of UFO coverage and stories, and some of them are pretty outlandish, but there's some that are really compelling.
Yeah.
Like for me, one of the big hallmark stories is Bob Lazar, Area 51. George Knapp broke that story wide open, and in that News Nation segment you guys did, it was really interesting and fun to watch you get in the Suburban and head out to Area 51. What was that like for you?
It was cool. Yeah. And George Knapp was super cool. We did a full 2 hours with him, a 2-hour documentary. And he's been basically saying these things
for years,
for like 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that we're excited and talking about now, he's literally been saying it forever, and just like no one was paying attention.
He's
basically.
like, y'all are late to the party.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. And the thing that I liked about him too was kind of like, I'm saying I came at it just with this like fact-based approach. That's how he came at it too. Like he was just a normal investigative reporter.
Yeah.
Someone dumped some files on his desk. There's some weird stuff going on, at Area 51. And then he started looking into it. So, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy, I spent a lot of time with him, that would be lying or making anything up. And he even knew David Grush for a long time before David Grush came forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they had, I think for almost a year, he pretty much knew the full story.
He's pretty clued into every UFO-related source or
Yeah, and it was hard to get him to do that.
I bet it was.
Yeah, it was like, that was one of the hardest, like, we called them bookings, like when you try to get someone on, like, because he just, I don't think he's out for the self-promotion really, So yeah, I had to really work that, but he finally, because he has so much work, we wanted to show everything he's done over the years.
I like how you did a comprehensive look at,
because News Nation owns the station that he worked at.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because News Nation is owned by this company called Nexstar that owns a lot of local stations too.
Oh, interesting. I
so
didn't know that.
we had access to his body of work basically.
Oh, wow.
Which no one else could get.
That's awesome.
So it was basically like his vault of work for the last.
Whoa.
So I was like, we need you. Like, we can't do this without you. Like, it's just wrong.
We need you to help.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to put all your stuff together. Like, we need you, So yeah, he finally agreed, and then it ended up being really cool. But yeah, it's hard to wrap. It's interesting, but it's funny because most people, like, if I'm ever recognized, it's a lot of the crime stuff, but then it's also like UFO stuff.
That's so
you know
cool.
what I mean? Like,
totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting. What are your thoughts when it comes to David's claims too? I mean, do you believe, or are you kind of still on the fence, or?
I just don't know why he would be lying.
Yeah.
And then also, like, when they had the UFO hearings in Congress, you had the other Navy pilots testifying.
Yep.
These are
Fravor
people who,
Graves,
these are people who are at the top of their game.
Yep.
Who
no reason.
There's
to lie.
no reason not to believe them. So they clearly saw something. I mean, we don't know what it was.
We've seen some of the video evidence of it from especially Fravor and Graves. And I mean, it's hard because I think a lot of people look at the footage and we're like, oh, in this day and age and technology, we should have like 4K crystal clear footage. But these things are getting picked up on, these fighter jets, and they have specific systems, the FLIR system and things like that are looking at these objects. So to us, it's like, it just kind of looks like a little thing moving across the screen.
Yeah.
But then there was like the jellyfish UAP. There's the other one that happened. I want to say it was somewhere over, it was either Afghanistan. It was like over a military base. There's a lot of weird, strange things. And a lot of people are like, well, are they drones or what are they?
And some of it, I think, probably is stuff that can be figured out. Like, I mean, you look at some of the new like stealth planes and helicopters, and if you didn't know they were making those and you saw that flying around, you'd be like, oh my God, like that's, like I even was at an air show in Miami recently, and the way some of these things maneuver now it's really crazy, but some of it there's just no explanation. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
I just want to see, because obviously the big groundbreaking claim that David Grush made was talking about, yes, we recovered the pilots of these craft that we've retrieved, and he referred to them as biologics.
Which could just be like cells. Like that's the other thing. Everybody thinks it's going to be like a movie.
It could
like
be the whole body.
Have just found like metals, pieces of metal that aren't on the periodic table, is the way it was described to us. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that it's what we see in the movies necessarily.
Right.
Like a little gray alien or something. With the big head and big eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
like those Mexican alien babies. Did you ever see those in the coffins?
Yes. I remember that.
Yep. So I don't know. I think it's interesting because there hasn't been much since
No.
David Grush. It's kind of like
it's really
died down.
down.
And that's
Yeah.
been sad for us because I would always love covering those stories.
Yeah,
but
we do.
And then also, I don't know if you followed, I think it was 2019 was when the big New York Times article came out about that. And then To the Stars and Tom DeLonge's company. And I don't know if you followed his whole group, and, they were the ones that like broke that UAP footage out there and kind of got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But then, he made all these claims that we have all of this evidence and, we have these non-terrestrial metals and things like that. And then we just haven't seen anything since. So you think it's kind of
or Avi Loeb? Do you follow Avi Loeb?
Yeah, Avi Loeb.
The fact that they were dragging like a rake in the ocean recently, like they had this whole this is a Harvard professor.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Harvard, and they found stuff on the ocean floor, like metals and stuff that don't compute, like that came from some other place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just crazy that doesn't seem to keep people's attention like you would think it would.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just the world we're in with social media and just, and also like, it seems like back in the day, if Roswell's true and if some of that stuff is true, they were scared to tell people because they thought that, with religion and with the way the world is, and it would set everything out of whack.
Yeah.
But I honestly think today, like if suddenly they're like, we're having a press conference, like we do think there's aliens, like we did retrieve some metals and biologics. Like
it'd be trending for
like
a few
news
hours
for like a day, and then don't you think honestly,
totally.
like there wouldn't be riots in the street?
No,
I don't think.
I don't know.
Like,
unless they actually had like video footage,
and no one believes anything anyway anymore. So even if they said that, then you have people say, "Oh, they're just lying and distracting us from something else." They don't. That's not really true.
Yep. Yeah.
Until they shake my hand.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
So like, I don't think it would be that big of a deal to just tell people whatever they know.
So it's like, why? What are they hiding? Like, what is the reason?
Well, like with David Grush, his whole thing is that one of the reasons they keep it so secret is for national security.
Right.
And that there's like this race happening behind the scenes between us and other countries to replicate the technology.
Which would make total sense.
Which makes sense, so they're keeping it secret.
Hence the national security issue.
For that reason. So some of that makes sense. So I don't know. Even after doing all these stories, I'm not like, I believe aliens, but I definitely don't not believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely open to it.
Yeah.
And I think there's something going on that the government is covering up.
Yeah.
I think we know enough to say that for sure.
Yeah, I think we can come
because why is it so hard to get information even for these like Congress people and and even like Trump did an interview. I don't know if you guys saw the other day about UFOs.
Oh, did he?
And was saying that, he said he doesn't believe, but he also has talked to a lot of people who are really smart in the government who do. And so he,
Where did he do that interview?
It was on a podcast. I forget which one.
Oh, Impulsive?
Impulsive.
Yeah,
that's right.
I did hear he did that.
Yeah.
That's Logan Paul's podcast.
Yeah, Logan Paul, yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's crazy that
I know.
President Trump's doing Logan Paul's
I think
podcast.
It's because he's got the whole, like, Logan has that Prime drink, and then they work with the UFC, and then Trump's connected. I think that was the connection.
Well,
Dana White.
Yeah. But they spent a good, 10 minutes talking about UFOs. It was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. I gotta watch that.
Yeah.
I know he got a lot of pushback, but I think it's interesting to hear.
And that was another one where, it's like people go into some of these Trump interviews so tough, which you have to. I mean, he's a former president.
Yeah.
There's reasons you need to be tough with the.
For sure.
But also, even in that Logan Paul interview, a lot came out that you probably wouldn't have gotten.
No.
And he was just talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
As he does.
Yeah,
totally. Because he did, a few years ago, he did the Nelk Boys podcast. That was kind of, totally unexpected. And then he just did Dr. Phil, I saw.
Yeah, he did Dr. Phil.
I kind of want to watch that too.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. We're not big Dr. Phil fans on our show, but
I haven't watched his Dr. Phil. Well, Dr. Phil just started his own TV network. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's we saw on the ad. Remember, they were like on the Dr. Phil network or something.
So
and we
he's
were
not
like,
the Dr.
what?
Phil show anymore. He has a full.
Wow.
Honestly, he's like going in the Oprah direction.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, we just
sorry.
It was just to explain. Yeah, we just covered the troubled teen industry and all the people that Dr. Phil has sent, all these teenagers to these terrible camps.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly stuff. Definitely opened my eyes to him a little bit more.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about him.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I literally had no doctor. I mean, I had a doctor, but I never really went to see them because I didn't know who they are. I didn't know what the reviews were. So I just avoided going to the doctor, but that all changed. I had a medical issue. I had to go see the doctor, but I didn't know where to start. But then I remembered ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Because if you've ever called offices to try to get a doctor, it's just a long, grueling process. And oftentimes you call to only find out that they're not taking new patients. Well, ZocDoc just makes it so much easier to find a doctor for whatever you need, whether it's internal medicine, general practitioner, literally any type of medical condition. They can help you find a doctor that's in your insurance's network, saving you time. And you can see actual patient reviews, which is super useful. Obviously, we all want to go to a doctor that everybody likes, right? So ZocDoc makes that super easy for you. Once you find the doc that you want, you can book immediately. There's no more waiting awkwardly on hold with the receptionist. I love that you can filter through based on who takes your insurance, who's located near you, and treat basically any condition that you're searching for. And the typical wait time to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc is between just 24 to 72 hours. So if you're in need of a doctor today, tomorrow, the next day, ZocDoc is the spot to do it at. Sometimes you can even score same day appointments. We all love that. I use ZocDoc and I think you should too. Go to ZocDoc.com/milehigher and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/milehigher. Let them know we sent you at ZocDoc.com/milehigher. I don't know. I think it's been a lot of years since he's really dealt with mental health in a professional capacity.
Yeah, well, you have a TV show, you have to be on an hour a day.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You know, that takes over, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Ratings.
Entertainer at this point.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, because I always ask guests this question, but where do you see, we talked about UFOs and, that's one segment of the paranormal, but what are your thoughts, or have you had any experiences with anything unexplained that's happened to you, or, spirits, ghosts, hauntings, things like that? Have you ever, you were in Savannah, Georgia, there's a lot of haunted history there, and you've been all over the place.
Yeah.
Or is that just something you don't think about?
That's a good question. I mean, dreams.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of interesting dreams.
Really?
Family members and dreams and stuff like that. But not so much. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've never had like I've never seen like a ghost per se or anything like that. Have you guys?
No. Well,
I mean, I would be open to it.
Yeah, I'd be open to it too. I had like a weird paranormal story from like right after college. It's not even worth telling. I don't know. Could have just been
strange things. Like I would say
strange things, but I don't know what exactly it was.
Like a full-blown apparition of a ghostly figure.
He would love to have that's like his life dream, to have a paranormal experience. But
I believe I've had paranormal experiences, just not a full-blown apparition. Like all sorts of weird things happening. Yeah. Especially on my other show. But have you ever been in anywhere that was
I want to go to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've covered that years ago.
I was trying to get because like George Knapp has connections there and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to get on that property. So that's something I would be interested in doing.
Because there's some wild stuff going on down there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it would, again, I'm open to the fact that there's places on Earth that probably have different energies.
Yeah.
And,
some anomalies.
Yeah.
I am too.
So that would be really interesting to see. But no, I haven't had a paranormal experience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, but I like you. I would be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I want to ask you this too. I'm sure you followed the whole Titan sub disaster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What was your thoughts on that?
Did you cover that?
I did. Yeah. We covered that quite a bit. I don't know that I would have gotten in that thing.
Yeah.
Would you have?
Hell no.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'll do for stories, I'll almost do anything. Because I go into that mindset, but I don't think I would have gotten it.
Would you go to the bottom of the ocean in a little?
No, and I wouldn't. I got offered to go on the Hurricane Hunter, which is that plane that flies into the hurricanes.
Yes.
And I didn't want to do that.
I don't blame you.
I just didn't want, I don't know. It just didn't want to do it. It scared me.
You got to trust that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also I got offered to go with the Navy on a submarine and stay the night on a trip. And I don't know why the submarine thing freaked me out. So I think
it is kind of freaky.
Yeah. So back to the Titan, I don't think that would be for me, but it was an interesting thing to cover for sure, Yeah.
And I think they're trying to get right back at it too. I was seeing they're going to start going back down.
But these explorers and adventurers, I mean, it's a risky lifestyle. I mean, I obviously felt terrible about what happened and the fact that he like marketed it to have other people come from the outside. But in terms of just putting your own life at risk to do these things, I mean, that's how these explorers have been forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Certain type of person. Has there ever been something that, like a story you've covered where you've had to do something that's like totally out of your comfort zone, that you're scared or hesitant to do it, or are you pretty brave for the most part?
I mean, so I've done a lot of weather coverage, like really bad hurricanes that I've had to stand out in.
Oh yeah, you've done like the whole.
Oh yeah,
what's that like?
And so that's really intense and scary because you don't realize when you're watching it on TV, like the power of Mother Nature in these situations when it's really bad. Like I've covered some, like Cat 4, Cat 5, Irma, Hurricane Dorian, Matthew. They were all, it flooding. I mean, flash flooding. Luis and I were in one where, you hear about flash flooding. You're like, oh, flash flood. Like it really, like the storm surge came up really fast where we almost got out of it. Like, so that stuff can be really scary, especially because it's like, you're doing your job, the adrenaline, and then there's this moment where you're like, I don't want to get myself into a situation where we get hurt. Like,
right.
And it just kind of hits you like we need to move. Like,
Yeah. Wow, that's so intense.
The storm stuff is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
being outside reporting. There's just stuff flying around in the air.
Flying,
you can get taken out.
Yeah. I have so many crazy storm because it's also just like you cover the storm and then you're there for usually like 2 weeks. The aftermath is like, that's what we always say in the business. Like you don't want to get so tired covering the storm because the story is really the aftermath. Yeah. Like that's when people are finding their homes and rebuilding and trapped, and that goes on for weeks and the power's out. So you don't want to like go too hard because it's kind of like what do they say? A marathon, not a sprint,
right. Yeah.
And so living in those situations, like covering those stories for 2 weeks or so can be really hard because there's no power. You're sleeping in a car a lot of the times. You bring enough food to last for a while, like granola bars and water. And it's a really uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's really uncomfortable. But then you're covering people who just lost their house. So then you're like, what am I complaining?
Right. Yeah, but it's a tough job.
Yeah, it is. I always, the weather stuff is really hard.
Do you ever get just like completely exhausted, like batteries at zero, where you just feel like I need to have time off?
Yeah. Sometimes like with the storms I have with Gabby Petito and Kohberger, sometimes you're just literally so tired.
Yeah.
Because especially with News Nation being all these hours now, like you might start in the morning and go all the way through 10 p.m. And sometimes you're just like, I literally have to sleep. Like it's not even an option.
Like your brain,
like
just
your body
can't work.
just has to. Yeah. And like my eyes go blurry when I get tired. Does that ever?
Oh
yes.
Yeah.
That's like a
or
thing
they'll
for
burn.
me. Yeah. So I'm just like, I can't even read my phone. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'll be screenshotting everything and like zooming in. And that's how I know I'm really tired.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, I could never live that life. I really respect that you're able to do that. It's
but
so
there's
hard.
something about like, it's like a privilege.
Oh,
it sounds weird.
Really cool.
But it's like a privilege to be able to cover these big stories. And even when they're awful stories, to be the one who gets to like tell people what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Huge responsibility.
Yeah, it is, to be like truthful and honest and not, sensationalize.
Yeah.
But so at the end of the day, like sometimes you're tired, but then I always dreamed of doing this. So it's like, this is what I've always wanted to do.
So at what age did you decide you wanted to go down this road?
I think like middle school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any inspiration from certain reporters or?
Yeah, I was just always obsessed with watching the local news.
Really?
Like at night, I'd watch the local news. Like I'd watch with my mom at 5 and then I'd be like, oh, if it was nearby, I'd make her go drive me out to where like the live shots were. So
this was in Miami?
Yeah. So that I could meet the people like, because they'd have to go live again at 6,
Yeah.
So I'd go out there. And I was like a weird kid. I was like
I
was
totally
a nerd.
Get that.
I was a magician.
Loved watching it.
Nice.
I was telling you earlier, I spent a lot of time in Miami when I was growing up, and it was like the thing to do is watch the news in Miami.
Yeah.
It's like the most exciting local news.
It's a really crazy local news market.
It really
like
is.
even before News Nation, I was just like, I can just stay here forever. Like there's no shortage. There's corruption, there's crime, there's crazy hurricanes, there's car chases, there's like you're busy every day.
Yeah, we do this little segment on our other show, The Sesh, where it's called CSI. It's just like a silly thing, but we report on like just stupid crime and like ridiculous news stories, you know, like people having sex outside of a KFC. Oh, Popeyes, right? Like just like ridiculous. But like so much of it, I'd say like 90% of it is Florida.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's entire Reddit threads of like Florida news.
Well, and they always say like Florida man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What do you think it is about Florida?
It's just like, you know, it was a swamp. Like they built all this stuff on a swamp, and then they're like, why is it flooding? Why are there alligators? Like, we're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You know?
Remember the Everglades?
Yeah. So I think it's just and people, I don't know, people just like run away to Florida. Like even my mom, like even my family, like my mom, she has 6 siblings. They all lived in New Hampshire, and she was kind of like the wild one. She went to Florida and never came back. You know what I mean? It's always like the wild one that like.
My mom just did that a couple years ago after her divorce. She's just like started a new life in Florida. And she's still down there.
So you have a lot of those people.
Yep.
And it's so hot in the summer there. I mean, there's a lot of things. Like a lot of people moved to Florida after COVID. Or during COVID, you know?
yes, because there was like less regulation.
Yeah. And a lot of New Yorkers, and I was just thinking like, these people do not know what it's really like.
Right.
They like it right now, but
get
ready for the summer, get ready for the first hurricane.
Yeah.
Like it floods it just flooded last week. It's just like a typical rainstorm, and it, you know,
Yep,
it
I
floods.
saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's, you know, it's home for me.
Totally.
Like when I go somewhere and when I like land, I'm just like, even if it's crazy feeling like it's hot or whatever, I'm just like, it's home.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that feeling. I want to ask you, do you have any recommendations or advice for somebody wanting to become a reporter or journalist?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because, you know, is it super competitive? Is it hard to get into? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, it was super competitive when I was coming up. I think it's a little less so now with social media and, you know, not as many people think. My dream job was to be like on the local news you know, now kids want to be on YouTube or they want to, you know, it's more popular in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's still the same job. I mean, you're still out gathering information. And my advice would be, I guess if I could give myself advice back, just to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because I think I always thought like Walter Cronkite or Peter Jennings or, you know, these famous newsmen, which were they were amazing, but I always felt like I had to emulate them perfectly. And it's like, I think if you're yourself,
that's the way to go.
That's the way to go. Yeah.
Yep.
So I would just, I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy, but be yourself.
So true.
Get lots of internships. I think it's more about like on the ground training, this kind of gig versus like getting into the best college or, you know, it's more about like doing the job and
experience. Yeah. Really building the heart.
Totally.
It. Yeah.
It's not something, because I was thinking that when you're talking about, you know, you just got to get out there and knock on doors. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, how much of that did they teach you in school? And how much of it was just, you just learned it as time went on and on the ground and just.
Yeah. I think it's just as time goes on. Yeah. Just like, you just realize like, if you want to set yourself apart, you just have to try to work a little harder than everybody else, you know, even if you're tired or that's always been my thing. Like, I'm not the smartest person. I'm not like, when I'm out at these stories, like there are other reporters who are way smarter than me that went to better colleges or, you know, or just, but I can outwork a lot of people. Like I'll just keep working. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like the drive.
Yeah.
That takes you far.
That's kind of where I think like I've set myself apart a little bit.
Would you say you're a risk taker? Like, do you need to take some risks?
I think so.
As a reporter?
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah. Because it's not a black and white business. I mean, when you're trying to get a story, when you're trying to uncover something, dig something up, you know, there's no rules for that.
Yeah.
It's not simple. And you have ethical dilemmas all the time. Like,
and the laws, obviously.
And the law too.
Right. Yeah.
But ethics too, you know, like how far do you want to push to get, how far, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to take some risks, I think, or there would be no payoff. But you don't want to take the wrong risks because you just like you do get one really big thing wrong, and that's all anybody's going to know you for.
Yeah, that's I'm sure really nerve-wracking. Was it hard to first go live like that? I know I was saying that to you before we started too. That I just can't imagine doing things.
It's like 3,
live.
2.
And do you have a teleprompter out?
So you not in the field,
earlier,
no.
Yeah.
Oh, you already asked this?
Yeah, I think before, right?
Oh,
yeah, before recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no teleprompter in the field. So in the field, you're just doing your thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and then in the studio, like if I fill in for Ashley Banfield or Chris Cuomo or whatever, you have a teleprompter. But a lot of those are interview shows. Yeah. So for that part, maybe for the introduction, you'll be reading. Yeah. But once the guest comes on, you're pretty much just having a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm much more nervous with like public speaking with like a big group of people.
Okay.
That makes me nervous.
Yes.
You have to give a graduation speech.
Oh, something like that.
Yeah.
Or even like if
way.
you're doing a live shot and suddenly like a lot of people start standing around.
Yeah.
That will make me
They're
nervous.
Like bringing their microphones to you. You're like...
Or like at political events, they'll have you on these risers. And so you'll be like this far apart from the next reporter.
Oh,
like you're all standing in a row and no one knows you're that close together. But in reality, you are.
Yeah, that's got to be.
And that makes me nervous because I feel like they're listening to everything I'm saying.
Like analyzing
yeah,
it.
Like, am I saying the right thing?
I'm going to destroy this guy after you.
Yeah. But if I'm just sitting there with the camera, I don't know. I don't really feel that. I don't get it.
You kind of lose, like, as we've learned, you just forget that they're there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you just start talking,
Yeah.
Or even like when I filled in, like people I grew up watching, like Ashley Banfield, that was like a big deal for me when they're like, you want to fill in? She's going on vacation,
huge.
Yeah. So you like fly to New York and like your makeup done. It's like a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I had to get like a new suit,
Yeah.
And I was nervous then for sure. But then I don't know if this is like with you guys, with what you do. Like suddenly kind of a wave will come over me right before.
Yes.
Where I just feel like it's going to be okay.
It just clicks in. Yeah.
Life is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah. I could probably come up with some.
Yeah.
Like my brain will go there.
So I don't know. That's kind of where I find myself like right before something that makes me nervous. I just kind of give into it.
Yeah. That's the way you got to be. But,
yeah.
And repetition, practice.
It's
and
true.
It's muscle memory after a while.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, here we go. And then have you ever like stumbled on your thoughts or
oh my gosh, all the time. Yeah. But I think that makes you more human too, in a way.
Yeah.
Like again, I think that the past of being like this perfect news reporter, I don't know. Is that,
I feel like that's kind of leaving?
I think so. We're all human.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to make mistakes, in terms of just like saying the wrong thing or you read the teleprompter wrong.
Yeah.
And especially, when I was in Missouri, like I was saying, I made some, I was a kid doing this, you know, you make a lot of mistakes.
Are you on one of those reporter reels?
Oh, I'm sure.
Like funny videos where a bug flies into the mouth and they're like, and they say something crazy and it ends up on an internet video.
Or like, what is the thing that they had? This is one of my big mistakes in Missouri. You know the little thing they keep the baby Jesus in? By the way, I grew up Jewish.
The manger,
The manger. Yeah. So I called it the manger.
The manger.
And I knew that it wasn't that, but like I was a young kid. I had my first job. I was like getting to anchor like the night of Christmas or something. Yeah. And like the phones lit up. It was like, this man's like,
oh my God.
What were you reporting on?
I don't even know. I don't even remember.
The local nativity
Something
scene?
like the local nativity scene. Yeah. But I remember that was like one of my I was like, my career is over.
Jesus is in the manger.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But it's funny, in those moments, you really think like, this is
a huge deal.
Like, I'm packing my bags and going home,
So what is your, do you have long-term goals of where you want to go in your career from here? I mean, you've already successful really young.
Have you guys been good about goals? I mean, you guys are like so successful. Is it like you, at this age, I'm going to have this many YouTube people and I'm going to be...
No. We've had goals, but never like around numbers or anything like that. I don't think we ever expected
big
where
vision
we're at.
Stuff for sure.
But yeah.
I need to be better about goals. I've known that I wanted to do bigger stories and like do a better job, like generally, but never like, like even when the NewsNation thing came along, I just heard about NewsNation and I was like, oh, let me call, you know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm going to be the next nightly news anchor. I don't know. I just kind of been going with the flow, which I would like to be better about having goals. I think that, but you're also so caught up in the moment. Like,
well, you're so busy. You probably don't have time to think.
Yeah. Like
goals.
my goal right now, like I want to find the Chinese pot people.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Like,
you know what I mean?
I want to bust.
I'm like, are we going to find them tomorrow? Yeah. That's my goal. It's not so much like, what am I going to be doing in a year?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you have would you like to do more of an anchor position one day?
I think I would be for just the sustainability of it, like the lifestyle. like this would be really hard to do for like 10 more years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of in my blood and I love it, but I don't know how
like
you go every
draining.
week like this with the planes. And
yeah.
Like, I just don't know that. I mean, to do maybe 1 week a month and then anchor or something like that would be cool. Like,
did you watch that show, the morning show?
Yes, on Apple TV.
What did you think of that? Is it realistic at all?
I think it kind of is with those morning shows. Yeah, and like I've always been like in the field, so I've missed a lot of the drama with the, you know, the people with the big heads and everything, you know. Mm-hmm. But I think some of it is real. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama with some of these people.
We were kind of thinking like this has got to be like super played up, which I'm sure to a degree it is, but
I'm sure to a degree, but I do think that, you know, there's just people are competitive in this industry.
Oh yeah,
like anchors and stuff, you know, and it's like everyone always thinks someone's coming for their job, and you know, so
somebody is probably coming for their job.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it would be cool one day, I think, to like have a show or something, you know, or like
I think you'd be
something of my own, you know, with.
I think you're going to get there. I can totally see that. I think you're going to be just huge in this industry.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you.
You're so talented. Is there like a bucket list story that you would want to cover if you had complete creative control, all the funding, you know, could do anything you want anywhere in the world? Do you have something you'd love to like dive into?
I mean, there's so many things like.
Yeah, it's a broad question.
Like, I mean, I love traveling. I would love to like go to Russia and like see what life is like there. You know, like some of these big interviews, like with people, you know, like Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin. I would like to interview those people, you know?
That'd be wild.
Yeah, stuff like that would be really cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the laundries, I would be very interested in talking to, you know?
Do you think they'll ever do an interview like that?
I don't know. I don't think they will.
I don't see it.
I don't either. But some people are like, why would you ever want to talk to them? And it doesn't mean that I would like what they say, but.
No, it's not like you want to hang out with them.
No, but I mean, I would be interested to hear their side of it all.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I would love to like go far away and do stories, you know, like internationally and stuff would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be a really cool experience.
Yeah.
What hobbies do you have? What do you like to do on your own?
Well, I have dogs. So I'm really into I had 3 dogs. One just recently passed away. So now I have 2. I have a golden retriever. It's okay. I have a golden retriever and a lab. So I spend a lot of time with them.
They're so cute.
They're really cute. Yeah. I love traveling. Like I'm really into traveling.
You did a good job for that.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
even like going places you want to go.
Like I just went to Kenya and Tanzania and Africa.
Oh, really?
I like really crazy vacations.
You like to be pulled completely out of your element.
Yeah, and I think because since my job is kind of an adventure, like I need like to take
extreme
it to the next level for a vacation.
Safari in Africa.
Yeah. So like I love planning just like off the wall. Like I'd love to go to like Antarctica on my next vacation. You know what I mean? Like just the weirder and crazier. The better.
Just doing around the world in 80 days or whatever it is. Do one of those.
I like planes. Like I'm kind of an aviation enthusiast. I like abandoned places. Like I like exploring, like going out and exploring abandoned buildings. And I think like, I'll do that on the weekends.
Yeah, that's cool.
You should start a YouTube channel.
You just live such an exciting life.
No, or I just like watching TV too. And sitting on the couch, honestly, swimming.
What do you like to watch on TV?
Like I watch a lot of Netflix stuff. I watch a lot of news. I like 60 Minutes, CBS Sunday mornings. I like watching Kardashians and stuff to get my mind off things. You know?
Just the brain
reality
stuff.
TV. Yeah. Escape your world and enter somebody else.
What do you guys watch?
I mean, just a variety of things. We just watched the morning show.
Yeah.
We just finished that recently. What else have we just watched?
We watch very tame stuff together. I like more.
Yeah, I have to kind of like.
Do you like horror movies?
Yeah, I love horror movies. So I do those on my own. But are you a horror
Midsummer?
fan? Yeah.
Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's a scary one. Yeah,
I gotta see that one.
Yeah, I like horror movies.
I couldn't do that.
Do you like Halloween?
The adrenaline rush. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I like Halloween.
I'm really into like for some reason, some people they're more scared of like the killer. I'm more scared of the demonic possession movies, and trying to think of one like Late Night with the Devil was a really good one.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff where it's more supernatural horror, that's what really gets me all fired up. Whereas and maybe it's because of what we do, but I'm kind of desensitized to like the killer that's stalking somebody or.
See, I'm more scared of like the killer that's stalking somebody.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me too.
It's more real for sure. Because you're like,
Yeah.
well, this could be, this happens in real life. So
like I remember growing up, I would always watch like America's Most Wanted and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries with that song.
Love
that
both
theme
those.
song.
Yeah.
Like I would be scared going to bed. That kind of stuff would always freak me out.
Where do you see News Nation going in the future?
I mean, we just went 24/7. So we're around the clock now, which is a really big milestone.
And when did that happen?
It happened a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
So it's been pretty recent.
Okay.
Yeah, because they filled in the weekends now.
So even like 2 a.m. I could turn it on.
Yeah.
News Nation is on.
Yeah. And so that's a really big step. And it's a lot of work behind the scenes to have live
So much
news
work.
coverage
Lots of
all
people.
the time.
How big's the team, do you think?
I don't know. I would say maybe like 500 people, something
Okay.
like that. Maybe more. But the thing is, so we're owned by this company Nexstar that it's the biggest owner of local TV stations.
Right, yeah.
So we have a lot of help from them. Like, let's say something happened in Denver right now. There's a Denver station that we could immediately go to one of their reporters, which is something other TV stations don't have. So that's good for us. But yeah, in terms of where it's going, it'll be interesting with the presidential election.
Yeah.
Do people kind of want a more down the middle approach to the news,
I think they do.
or do they want to just kind of go into their little silo of MSNBC or Fox?
Right.
Well, then let them go there. You
Yeah.
know? I love that News Nation is just really taking this new approach. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so needed.
It is. Yeah. It's cool to work at a place where you can be like proud of the mission
Yes.
and talk about it and not, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
feel like embarrassed or like,
No.
we're kind of actually doing,
Yeah. Yeah. I hope it always stays the way that it is.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. I mean, when anything just starts, I'm always like, oh, this is so great now. As it gets bigger, is it going to change?
Yeah.
And like as things have gone on the last couple of years, it's stayed, really true and like improved in so many ways too.
And the other thing too is everybody has their own brand too. Like, if you like Banfield and crime coverage, she does her thing. Dan Abrams has a show.
Oh, yes.
And
yeah,
if you
I
like
saw that.
legal, analysis, and he's really
I really
into,
like him too.
Yeah.
cops, and you want to see like what it's like for police officers. He's really,
Yeah.
you've got Chris Cuomo who does his thing.
Yep.
So it's like, depending on when you watch, you'll get a really different perspective.
What's Chris like?
He's cool.
Is he?
Yeah, he's very cool. I filled in on his show a couple times. Actually more than a couple times when he's been on vacation, which is also kind of like a crazy, like, suddenly I'm filling in for Chris Cuomo.
That's got to be such a dream come true.
It's cool. Yeah. And
Mhm.
he's super nice too. Like, text me, good job. You did great last night. And it's like those little things from people really go a long way. It really
Totally.
helps boost your confidence and feel like, wow, like
Yeah.
I can do this,
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, he's similar to Ashley, like just real and nice.
Oh, I love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I would just be like, oh, he's okay. I mean it. He really is,
Oh, that's.
Do you ever get together with all of them, or are you guys always just
So
working?
when I've gone to New York, I've gotten together with Chris and just like seen him around and talked a bit. Ashley and I have hung out a couple times. Like if she's been in Florida, we'll go to dinner.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you see us on TV all the time together,
Yeah.
like through the screens, but
Yeah.
you don't see the people that much in person because I'm usually the one out
Right.
at the
You guys
stories.
are so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're cool. The people at News Nation are a little more like humble and
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going after, mainstream America. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to be if
Yeah.
you want to hit that demographic.
and that's another reason, honestly, like I'm kind of glad that I live in Florida. Like I think when you live in New York City,
yeah.
like a
Totally.
lot of these
Yeah.
news people,
You get really.
you kind of like live in this little bubble,
Yeah.
And I don't know, I like just kind of being normal,
Yeah.
you know?
It's a good way to be.
And you meet people, you see what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're not like you said in this protected bubble.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
some of these people have
in a
never
high
even driven a
rise
car.
somewhere. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you'll
that's
be like,
true.
oh, in the car when no, I don't have a car. I've never had a car.
I'm driven
like,
everywhere.
You're
Yeah.
50 and you've never had a car. Like, you know what I
Crazy,
mean? Which
yeah.
is cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you need more than just that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely
totally.
hard to relate with the average person, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
If you don't know how to drive a car. So
Right. No, seriously.
Yeah.
So
Well, I love to hear that the team, you guys all are the way you come across.
I think so. Yeah. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, from what we've seen, Jennifer was just fantastic.
Jennifer Koffendorfer's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. She's so
cool.
funny. So when she came to Gabby Petito to help us with that, with the coverage and give analysis, we were supposed to have someone else.
Oh, really?
And they canceled or something. And it was actually someone who I knew and liked. So I was kind of like trying to convince that guy to come. He had like a case the next day. They're like, we found this woman, Jennifer Coffendoffer. And I'm like, who is Jennifer Coffendoffer? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I had first heard of her.
And she rolled up, she drove from Jacksonville all the way across the state. And she had this like little, I remember she had this little Jaguar convertible. And I was like, who is this lady? Because it was kind of like swampy where we were pushing. Like she got out and she had this salad and she's like, can I eat my salad in the back of your car? And I was like, I love her. Like she's one of us.
Yeah, she's so chill.
Yeah.
It was so fun to have her here.
Yeah.
Just love her. Yeah, what a cool team. I really love everything you guys are doing.
Well, thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I have one question. If you could have a definitive answer or, the exact information to any question or any topic in the world, whether that's something we've covered like UFOs or a specific true crime case or any life questions you have, I'm curious, what would you want to know?
That's a really good question.
That is deep.
I guess there's two. Like maybe because we've just been talking about UFOs, I would want to know like, are UFOs real? And like, what do the aliens look like? And are they among us?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm like a spiritual person, and I believe in a higher power, I think, but I'm not like really religious. Like I don't go to temple or church every,
Mm-hmm.
But I was just thinking about this the other day because like with loved ones who have died and stuff, I would really like to know if you actually get to like see the people again.
Yeah, I would love to know that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we have
and
a lot
like
of
with
those
pets too.
Here. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds cheesy, but like if you really knew that you got to be
reunited.
I would really like to know the answer to that. That would be very And I can see why people believe that the way they do because it is very comforting. But I would like to know for sure.
I would like definitive proof.
I would like definitive proof that I'm gonna get to,
Yeah, it would be comforting. I feel like there's a reason, like we're not supposed to know those things until we get there. That's kind of what I've always told myself. I'm not supposed to have this information, but
if we do go to anywhere, you know what I mean? Like if we get to where is, who knows what that where is.
Right. No
if
one
there
really
is a where,
knows for sure, right?
No. It could be your next story. Try to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. It'd be a hard
An endless quest.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap up, one last question about your actual next story. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in Oklahoma? And this is so interesting.
So I'm going to Oklahoma. One is there's a hearing on Wednesday with these moms that were murdered in the Kansas, Oklahoma area.
Yeah, you were telling me. I have surprisingly not heard.
Yeah,
that.
You'll have to look into it. It's been a pretty big case. Basically, like these two moms were killed. There was this custody dispute, and it's kind of complicated. But it was this. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and it's all. It turns out that the suspects were in this group called God's Misfits, which is actually kind of like a cult.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like it. Yeah.
So I'm going there to follow up on that with the hearing. But then I'm also, when I was out there last time on this murder story, all the locals were like, did you know that there's all this like this Chinese black market pot out here? And there's like Chinese people coming in, buying up the land and growing marijuana. And then the money's fueling back to China. I was like, what? So I looked into it and it's like a thing. Like I interviewed the Attorney General of Oklahoma last week. They're busting like 15 of these farms a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a huge issue.
It's a huge issue. And they're just gobbling up this land in Oklahoma and growing this marijuana. And they're coming across the border, the Chinese people, and then they're going to work on these farms. So I'm going to basically go try to find them. So you ask about my my process. Like I've got a local guy who's just like, I'll take you to some, we'll go find some of them.
That's it. Yeah. And then it goes from there.
And it goes from there.
Are you filming and stuff?
We're filming, yeah. But I find like with stuff like this, I don't really like setting too much up.
Yeah.
Like because some people have the mindset you set a bunch of stuff up when you go on a story.
Yeah.
Which is kind of comforting because I'm
going to talk to this person, this person.
But like, I don't know. It's a little more risky, but I would prefer to just like, we have the one guy who's going to be our helper and show us around and apparently knows where these places are. And like beyond that, you just kind of.
Just wing it.
You
just
go. Because that's real, right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's what people like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is just winging it. So you're going to go record it, obviously not do a live. Are you doing something live there?
Well, no, we'll record everything.
And then do
put something together depending on what we get. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. I wonder what kind of security these farms have.
Will you be working that tonight?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to fly there tonight.
Okay.
And then sleep, and then we're going to start tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how cool. I'm
That's
excited
fun.
to
I'll let you know how it goes.
Can I come
too?
Let
me know.
You want to come?
I want to come.
Yeah.
You have to send me a DM and let me know, and that's I want to watch that for sure.
Okay, I'll send you the link.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Bryan,
thank you so much for having. This has been so fun. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Of course, seriously, anytime. This was super, super exciting. When you said you wanted to come on the show, I was just like,
I was
no
so excited.
way.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, of course I want to come on the show.
Oh my gosh, it means a lot to us. It's really, really cool. And you're always welcome back. And let the rest of the News Nation crew know.
I will for sure.
We'll just keep getting you guys out here because we're such fans of News Nation. I can't say it enough. It's so refreshing.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Where can people watch you?
Yeah.
So if you it's interesting, like people don't, since it's still new, a lot of people don't know about News Nation. Yeah. But if you get like Fox or CNN or MSNBC, you get News Nation. Like we're actually in more homes than them. So with the cable providers and YouTube TV. So you just have to look for it. Like the channel is different depending on where you live. Okay. If you have YouTube TV, it's on YouTube TV. I think it's on like Fubo, all those streaming services. And then like you can find us on newsnationnow.com and I'm on Twitter. So
we're just the News Nation YouTube channel. I'm subscribed and they like clip it all too.
Yeah. Or you can watch us on YouTube. So
Yep.
So
and then where can people follow you on social media?
So I mainly just do Twitter. Okay. Yeah. So just Bryan Entin, my name.
I want X Bryan.
Oh, X. Yeah. Sorry. I keep forgetting.
Oh, right.
I don't care. I don't care.
It's never going to be X.
Yeah. But I should probably do more like Instagram and stuff, but I don't know. It's a lot of work.
I was telling myself I should do more Twitter because I kind of got off there. I got a little burnt out, especially when Elon took it over and stuff, but I should probably be on there. But you know what? You can only spread yourself so it's too much.
It is.
Because then it's TikTok and everything else.
Yeah. Right.
That. It'll never be enough.
Twitter's X is my name.
Yeah. I feel like you just got to have one.
Yeah. I like it too because it's kind of like, it's almost like my archives. Like if I have a story I don't remember from 4 or 5 years ago, I've always done it. So you can find it easily.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've used your Twitter as a source so many times just for like the latest, especially as it's coming out. I mean, it's always great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, seriously, it was so awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I loved hanging out with you.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll get to hang out again.
Anytime you want to come back, you're always welcome.
Or if you go on vacation to South Florida or something.
Yeah. We probably will. Janelle's headed there in a few weeks.
Yeah.
We can hang out at the Cleveland together.
I don't know if you want me at the bachelorette party.
Hey, I'll tell her that you're coming.
Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
So fun, guys. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of Mile Higher. We'll be back next week, but until then, keep on taking your mind a mile higher.